you came to me like the day after me and Jetty had a big talk about matchmaking in a similar form to this, and you said, "Hey man, I want to do one of these." And then a little bit later, you said, "I got some ideas about aircraft carriers. Can you tell me about?" First of all, tell me a little bit about you, where we can find you online, and then tell us a little bit about kind of your idea for today's conversation. And then we'll smash that to bits and do a slightly different version because we can never stay on task on this show.
So my name is Angelic Cypher. I've been playing World of Warships now since shortly after it launched in 2015. I am a CV main. I grew up a Navy brat, loving CVs because my dad was almost always stationed on them, or at least with the aircraft squadrons.
Oh, cool.
So I just kind of came up that direction.
I knew you said that you were a Navy brat. I didn't realize. I never asked, I guess, what your dad was up to. So he was working with aircraft for for carriers, so not like shore-based aircraft, but ship-based aircraft. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, he was what they call AO, or aircraft ordnance. So he was the person who actually loaded all the bombs, the missiles, and etc. Yeah. And he was in during Vietnam, so he worked primarily on A4 Skyhawk squadrons, but he did work on some others as well throughout his 20 years, awesome. Which was pretty neat. And they gave me a love of aircraft carriers in general. And then I was living next to Hawaii, in Hawaii next to Pearl, and saw the Arizona Memorial, and the World War II history bug bit me when I was really young. So one of my favorite movies growing up was Midway. So
there
you go, all carriers.
Sure.
I live near the DC Metro, and that's a little bit about me. Married, 2 kids, both kids stream, so nice. You might catch them on.
Where is your Twitch stream? Where is your and you have
I was just
YouTube
about to
channel.
get there.
Yeah, go for it. I'm going to drop the links in chat while you're talking about it.
Yeah, please do. So Twitch is twitch.tv/AngelicCypher. I usually stream Thursday and Friday nights for World of Warships, and Sunday I take a break from that and I do survival horror. Right now I'm playing Resident Evil 2. Where you can find me on YouTube, it's
I just dropped the link. You've got that. Yeah, so
I just launched the YouTube channel, so I'm trying to do a video a week, and they're all about basically similar things to this conversation. A little bit more in depth though. Techniques as a CV, how do you play a specific CV or counter said specific CV. That'll be in the same video. They're all pretty short. I think my longest one is probably about 6.5 minutes, and that's the one I'm working on now.
That's a skill. That's a skill I don't have. I don't know how to make a video that's 6 minutes long. So congratulations, you've cracked a very important code. I think that's probably helpful for you.
I'm trying, and the whole reason why this came out to get to that third question, it's part of the key reason I decided I wanted to start streaming is because of the sheer salt around CVs. And I figured a lot of people would ask me to do things in a CV that doesn't make any sense or is not, it's outside of the capabilities of the aircraft carrier. So what I started to realize pretty early on was a lot of people just don't understand them and they hate them as a result.
Sure.
So, and I'm not trying to make everybody a CV fan this time around. What I'm trying to do is help people understand what they can and cannot do so you can better learn to play against them.
Yeah.
And reduce assault.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a cliched statement to say, like, people hate what they don't understand. But I mean, it is true that can be really frustrating, and it can generate disappointment and angst when you don't understand the platform that you're trying to play against, right? And we talk about that all the time on this channel, and I hear it on other streamers' channels as well, which is, hey man, if you want to know how to not get citadeled by battleships in a cruiser, number one, don't do what Clyde did and drive your Nuremberg like this in front of them. But the other thing you can do is learn how to play a battleship, and you go, oh, Nurembergs get citadeled real easy. How did I know? I just popped one, right? Like, you learn what to do there. You understand to identify that destroyer torpedo turn that shimikazes do, right? That thing where you're like, that guy just launched torpedoes. How do you know? Well, because I know that's when I would have launched torpedoes. That's why you make that maneuver. And then he popped his smoke, and now he's going to farm me while he waits for the torpedoes to get, you learn those things that destroyers do. And the same thing is true for CVs and submarines. And those are two platforms. We're not going to get into subs as much today. One day, if I'm feeling brave, we'll talk about submarines. Right now, I don't think I have the stomach to get through it with the way the community is. But and sometimes the way I am, if I'm honest. But CVs and submarines are very, very different classes. The difference between a cruiser and a battleship and a destroyer is honestly, it's a pretty easy hop. It's still beneficial to learn to play both of them. But the difference between any of those classes and a submarine or any of those classes in a CV is greater, right? And so that knowledge gap that you have, that ignorance, and I'm going to say that it's not insulting, I'm not trying to sass anybody, but the ignorance you have about the CV platform, if you never play it, is pretty maximal. It's pretty high.
Yeah, you don't look at my destroyer ratings; they're pretty abysmal.
That's okay. It's okay. Yeah. So, and about your YouTube channel too, we did post the link in there. I'll drop it in here one more time. There's Cypher's YouTube channel. I did go and I watched your first video and I watched your second video. The first one you posted, I think I asked you to send it to me, and then I gave you some feedback, and then went and watched the second one just because I subscribed to your channel. I think this is going to be a really interesting YouTube video series. As you said, it's a brand new channel. You're getting the hang of the ropes. You're trying to understand video editing and how to communicate those ideas. But I thought your first two videos were good. So if you guys are interested in CV play and you want to go and support the fledgling channel that Cypher set up, I do encourage you guys to go check out that channel for sure. Anything else to say about your channel or any of that stuff before we get started? I mean, we're kind of started. Really. I think we're into it. This is happening.
Yeah,
right
pretty
now.
Much. Oh, no, we're doing a thing.
Okay. Somewhere I have a document up. Okay, so this has kind of an outline on it. We talked about being civil. Don't be sassy or flippant. We might give you a timeout. Don't be mad if we give you a timeout. But understand that your message came across in a way that we're trying to not have that be the focus of the channel. We are willing to talk about the good and the bad here today. Let's see. There are people who think that we should take CVs out of the game. I feel like that feels like at this point in 2023, in 2024, that feels like a very old idea where people are still like, they still seem to believe that they can appeal to wargaming and eventually get CVs removed, or at least they like to shout about it as though they think that it's a realistic possibility. I don't think that's realistic. I don't think it's happening. I think we're getting new lines. We've got how many CVs in the game? You probably actually know. How many CVs do we have in the game?
42.
You know it to the single digit integer. You know it to the ones place. Yeah, 42 CVs in the game, right? We know they're not going away. So because they're here, we want to try to understand them, which was kind of, I think, what you were getting at. How do we reduce the salt was a question that you had thrown out there. How do we help people understand that? And I guess if you're trying to help people be less salty about CVs, what can we do there to help them with that?
I think a lot of it is...
I didn't tell you I was going to ask you that question, so I apologize.
No, that's fine. It's fine.
How do we solve this?
I like the dialogue.
Intractable problem, right?
So I think a lot of it is understanding the ways each type of CV. Well, let me reform that in the brain pan here for a second. Part of it is going to be talking a little bit about AA and what AA capabilities are, how a CV spotting can affect things, some of the limitations thereof, how effective CVs actually are, because there seems to be this thought that if a CV's in the match, I'm dead. It's like, oh great, there's a CV, and this set of ennui sets in for a lot of people.
Or worse yet, there's two CVs, right? Oh, geez.
Right.
They're gonna team up on me,
Yeah. So I want to discuss some of those things, and I'm not gonna. I don't want to try and drill down into the nitty gritty, but I do want to provide avenues of here's things you could look at in this direction. If you want to get nitty gritty, by all means, hit me up on my Discord. Come ask me questions during my stream.
Yeah,
I'll be more than happy to do demonstrations and stuff.
Yeah. SFNL had a comment earlier. I don't know if SFNL stops by your channel, but he stops by mine for sure, and often has some intriguing ideas. He said, it might be helpful to kind of just frame what the class does well, what it's for, how it's effective, and stuff like that. So we kind of understand its mission and its role in the game. And then once we've kind of talked a little bit about the concept of CVs and how they help if they're on your team, how you can help if you're a CV, that might be a good place to kind of start the conversation, and we can go from there. So I guess
Yeah.
when you load into a new match as a CV, you probably have some goals in mind, and you may not have verbalized these in words before. But like, what does the CV do? Coming from your perspective as a player who plays a lot of aircraft carriers, almost primarily aircraft carriers. What are you trying to do? What are your goals, and how can you support the team? What
Sure.
is the role of that platform? And I understand that it will be varied across different flat tops in the game.
Yeah. So as a broad spectrum,
Yeah,
some
I
of
think
the main
that's
things that
good.
one of the first things I do when I look at going into battles, I look at what ships on my team are susceptible to aircraft carriers, and what ships on my team, or what ships on the enemy team, are the ones that I need to be aware of, because I don't want to go anywhere near there if I can avoid it.
Mhm.
Because some of them just have too powerful AAs, and that kind of starts me placing the chess pieces. But the whole thing that I do with when I get into a match is I try to look at the flanks. What flank is weak, what flank is strong on my team versus their team. Where do I need to push? What are the most dangerous targets to my team? And
Mhm.
how can I help affect that target? Sometimes I can't actually get a strike on them, but what I can do is I can get them to turn, so my team might be broadside, or get them to where they're not able to hit my team, or something along those lines. Provide some intelligence data, not all the intelligence data, because I find that DDs are still a huge factor. Yes, CVs can provide data on the entire map, but not at once. So that I try to pay attention to
Yeah, and
what
that's
DDs are being good about positioning versus what ones aren't, and maybe I need to shore up the other flank that's not being good about positioning. Those kinds of things.
when you
But
say
it's all
being good
about,
about positioning, you mean your team that has strong or
yeah.
poor positioning? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, especially if a DD is doing something like, you have him 2 full grid squares ahead, and he's open water gunboating against 4 ships. I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, sorry. I need to go help provide data to that side, because that guy's about to get clapped.
Yeah, and of course, as
Yeah,
a
those
CV,
kinds of
it's
things.
if you can identify that earlier, right, then you
Hmm.
can hopefully prevent somebody from stumbling into a thing. But you really can't play those people's ships, right? And so there's a lot of like I can provide a little support or a little backup on one side or the other for sure. You talked a little bit about
Well, we had
or go
a
ahead.
good question in here.
Oh, go ahead, take
Uh,
it.
so SFNL, what would be effective communication for your CV? Um, a simple request of, can you do this? Some CVs are going to be more confident in their abilities to do certain things.
And more
Just like,
responsive
can you
too.
hit this?
Yeah.
Um, and if it's something that I can affect, usually what I will do is I'll type back, yeah, give me a second. I'll because I can't teleport the planes, obviously, but just give me a sec. I'll be right there. Um,
Hmm.
just make a request of, is this something you can do? If I turn around and say no, I can't, it's not because I don't want to help you, because I want you to fry, by all means, because that's not going to help me get a win. It's because I'm seeing something on the board that's preventing me from doing that, or I might have to make a tactical decision and unfortunately let that flank fold
Yeah.
because I have something else I need to do, or something along those lines. So that's kind of the best way, is just simply ask, can you do this? But don't get upset if they say no, because the CV player might not be confident in what they can or cannot do.
Well,
Or
there's
even if they are a confident one, they're looking at it going, dude, you're asking me to walk into a hall and a Worcester and a Colbert. Good luck.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, and that's a kind of what you're describing there is common for a lot of players too. Like if you want help from any player, you can ask them. Some of them are going to be like they're going to respond turbo aggro like screw you man, I got my own problems, right? And some people are going to want to try to help, and some people, like you said, won't be able to. One of the big things that, and this goes for all classes,
Mhm.
is being able to, this is just a World Warship skill, which is being able to read the map and understand.
Wait, there's a map?
Yep. Yes. And okay, that's step one. Is finding that. But being able to read the map, not only the mini map, but also just the actual battle map and everything, and understanding like ahead of when it starts happening that this side is going to be struggling without giving up that side early. And boy, that's a tipping point, right? There are people who have kind of a victim mentality where they load into a match like, oh, great, that OP ship's here, or those CVs here, or here, look at all these subs. And so I might as well not even try. That's not helpful for anyone. You got to try. That's the one thing that you have to do. Once you're trying, then you got to be able to read that battle and understand how to deal with the situation you've been given, because it's not always good. You can still ask for help, like you said, and I think that's a fantastic thing to do of any class. Can you smoke me? Can you spot for me? Can you strike this target? And that's for destroyers, that's for guys with radar, that's for folks in carriers, you know, and then being able to try to respond to that. But if you've been dished up a bad hand, you got to understand when to fall back from that and what you can do while you're falling back. It's sometimes better to give up some ocean and everything when you can't get the support from the CV or whatever other class that you can't get, than it is to be angry about it and YOLO in there and be like, well, I had to do something, you know. I mean, oh my gosh, please don't do that, right? Play every battle to win, even if the side you're on sucks. Like, bad attitude maybe from me to say sucks, but you know.
Howitzer brought up a bit about losing planes is through fighter cover. Basically, it's fighter cover will never stop an attack. It prevents a future attack. I want you to hold on to that thought, because we are going to be bringing that up really hard here soon, because you are dead right. Another thing in here, Lunchbox. I don't want to get
go for it.
Yeah, I don't want to dive too much into the how-tos of CV on this one.
Yeah.
But I will say that the short answer, the one that I usually recommend to start with, because they're kind of jack of all trades, master of none, the US line, the US main line going up to Midway. They're a great line to learn on, because if you do it right, you can hit almost anything with anything. So they're not as specialized as, say, the AP bombs from the Japanese, because you can get overpens. They don't work on destroyers, etc. It's like, oh, what do I do? You know, or the Germans with their AP rockets ricocheting off things, or you know, the British having no ability to pen. But if you don't understand CV positioning, the Russians are going to be a bear. You know, those kinds of things. So I usually recommend start with the US.
I see what you did there. The Russians are going to be a bear.
That was an unintentional pun, I swear.
I agree. I'd suggest the Midway line as well. It's a real, as you said, jack of all trades line. This discussion is not about like what carriers are best for beginners, but like, I mean, we're happy to take little questions like that. So I'd start with that line. I would grind up to like the tier 6 and then spend some time and that's the Ranger. Spend some time at the Ranger. That's a great learning place for CVs.
At Lunchbox, I posted a video on the Langley and Ranger, as well as one on curling on my YouTube. By all means, check them out. They're a good basic overview. And if you have more questions, hit me up directly.
And the other thing I'll say is Ascance, who is now a community manager for World of Warships down in Austin, Texas. He's got a video on that very topic where he goes, let me talk about the lines and what they're good at and what they're bad at. The trouble is I don't know what the video is called, and he's got like 100 videos on CVs on his YouTube channel.
He's got more than that.
Yeah, it's a lot, right? So you might have to sift through a few, but definitely check out Ascance's YouTube channel. He'll usually like bring up paint and draw little pictures and stuff and walk through things to talk about the strengths and weaknesses of each carrier line or whatever topic du jour is going on there. So if you're looking to do some CV research, check that page out as well. We love a good Ascance video as well.
Yes, he's very good at it. He hasn't posted anything recently, but his stuff is still relevant. So by all means, check him out.
Yeah, even though the videos are a little bit older, they're very relevant. So you kind of talked about the role of I want to go back when you were first talking about kind of the role of the CV. We were covering. This is a comment I wanted to get back to. You were like, well, I kind of like to look at what's on both sides and figure out which side has some strong things that maybe I can counter, or maybe some weaknesses that I can exploit, which I don't think you said that exactly, but I'm going to put those words in your mouth. Tell me if that's not right. But so part of that is you going out and scouting, spotting those ships initially, because you're going to get there faster than any destroyer. Destroyers are going to be there shortly after you. How many minutes into the battle, I guess, are you kind of, and this is also not what this video is about, but how many minutes into the battle are you dedicating to spotting and understanding on average? And then after that, you're going to work. Like, how long does that take for you at the start of the battle?
To be honest with you, I start sizing it up before I even enter the battle. I'm looking at the player data screen.
Of course, yeah.
At this point, I usually do it pretty quick. So as far as getting a basic overlay of, okay, these are things I want to avoid. These are ships that I could probably exploit. But these are also things that are going to be dangerous to my team, et cetera, et cetera. I do most of that on the load-in screen. And then after that, it's like, okay, where are these pieces? Then I go out and get as much intel as I can. I usually will do 1 to 2 flights out. So after about 3 minutes, I'll have information that I can really start pushing. CVs are a little bit of a slower build up because the AA is usually more involved at that point. So I don't want to just go rushing into stuff because I'm going to lose a whole bunch of planes in a hurry. So
yeah, especially early match.
But yeah, it's usually
easy.
about 3 minutes at that point. I've got a pretty good feel of, okay, this is where I need to be applying pressure.
And then, and this is also a tutorial question that I'm going to ask you. And then I promise we're going to get into the meat of the thing. I'm kind of afraid to go to our first slide because it's going to cause a lot of chat. It's going to cause chat to blow up. But the next question is, where do you want to park your carrier? Let's assume an American carrier. So
that's
some
a loaded
carriers,
question.
It is. Some carriers you want to be super close, like the Soviet CVs want to be up close, right? Some CVs don't need to be quite that close. But like, what kind of a location are you looking for to put your carrier at the start of a match? Like, before you really know where the enemy ships are, what are you doing to your CV? Do you drive it somewhere? Do you move it to an island? Do you leave it where it is? What do you do at the very start?
It depends on the match.
Yeah,
it really depends on the match. So Big Data, I think, actually said something there that I think is very, very relevant to this. The CV is like the queen on the chess game. Highest influence, but you also are very important to perform a victory. So you don't want to be the one who goes, YOLO, I'm going to go get a cap.
Right.
No. What I usually do, if I see CVs that could potentially try to snipe me effectively, and I see higher tier battleships or battleships that have a really long range, I might move back initially. Not necessarily go in reverse, but I would probably click a grid square above me and let my CV get up steam and do a loop basically a little bit further away until I know where everything is, so I don't get sniped out of the gate. Then it sorry, just catching some of the things in chat.
There's a lot here that's happening in chat, right? It's been fun to watch while you've been talking. I like this where I can just read and someone else talks on my stream sometimes. This is nice.
So, but generally speaking, when I know I'm not in danger, or I don't believe I'm in danger, because there are plenty of times I screwed this up, I want to get my CV in a position that I'm a grid square away at most from the maximum spotting distance that of my ship. So for instance,
okay, that's actually kind of a good rule of thumb right there, is using that grid square as kind of a rough estimate. Some of the squares are different sizes in different maps, but that's still a good rule of thumb.
Yeah, it's basically the nearest ship, if he's outside of a grid square away from my furthest out detection, I will try to push up a little bit to get them to right about that one grid square away. I don't like the idea of parking behind an island. I don't like sitting still. That doesn't mean I won't, but because there's times where it's like, I need to sit tight for a little bit. But yeah, that's actually one of the hardest things as a CV main to get right.
The reason I ask is selfish. I'm kind of like, some matches I don't know what to do. Some maps I'm like, there's no island.
This is why I hate Faroe Islands.
Yeah, that's like 1,000 miles. The nearest island's 1,000 miles away, or it's actively in a danger zone. Do I just sit here? Do I put my CV in reverse? I feel like waiting for a couple of minutes to see where the flow of battle is going to be is probably the smartest thing. Provided the match isn't really small, like Faroe Islands, like Trident, something like that, where you can get struck. I think it was Howie that said, it was Armored Prayer said, high range battleships in a div with a CC is a big red flag. Absolutely, there are some meme divisions that are just looking to delete the enemy CV. That's victory for them, and so the rest of the battle is just fun. But that's what
I've actually had people put together it was a 10-11-11, and they were sync dropping me specifically to hunt me.
Oh yeah, for sure. We had the was it Musashi's not the most accurate, like you'd be better off with a Montana, but they were doing Graf Zeppelins with Musashi's. Remember that a few years ago?
Oh yeah, the 899. Yeah,
the 899. That was a big deal. People were going crazy, and so yeah, there's definitely that happens, right? You want to watch for those things. That is not the norm, right? That isn't an every battle thing, but it is a thing.
It is a thing. What's interesting about it though is they've built themselves up. 3 ships out of 12 build themselves up with the idea of taking out 1 ship.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a good use of your resources.
Yeah, hopefully you can also do other things, because if that's all you can do, and that's definitely not true, but I mean, if that's really your focus, yeah, you're using a lot of energy, aren't you, to get just one platform?
Howitzer, yes, she is a CV.
Yes,
tier
Graf
8
Zeppelin's a
premium.
Tier 8. I don't remember. Did they choose Graf Zeppelin because the planes are fast? Is that why they chose that ship for that? It must be.
It was one of them that they would do with it. Another one that they would do would be Parseval, because of the speed of the planes, or yeah. Shokaku was another one.
They wanted to get close. So really the trick there, and we should not teach people this. This is bad form. But you would basically spawn in, launch your fastest planes, go spot the CV, and you'd have laser focus accurate battleships just plugging those guys with spotter planes up, 26-kilometer shots. You've got to be pretty high skill to pull this off. You know, I'm slightly ashamed to admit that we tried it, and it was not easy to do. It was not a good use of our resources. But when it worked out, it was kind of hilarious, but only in a trolly way. That was an immature and angsty young Clyde. He would not do that today. Also, I don't think it's the best way to win the battle, right? Like, I think, like you said, it's investing a lot of resources and time in taking out a single platform on the enemy team, a single ship on the enemy team.
Yeah.
You can win games easier just playing World of Warships well.
And if the CV knows how to counter it, or is good enough to counter it, you're doing nothing but wasting their time. And it's like, okay, cool. In the meantime, I'm moving my hull around with autopilot and I'm striking stuff, and they're doing nothing to defend it.
That's right.
So,
okay, are you ready for our first image?
Let's go.
First thing. So the first one, guys, is common player complaints. I'm just gonna hit this button, and this is gonna be like a bunch of complaints on the screen that people have.
Should I duck?
No, I think you'll be okay. This is not even all of them, right?
No.
And I don't actually think chat's gonna, detonate on us or anything. But let's go through these. Cypher, do you want to talk about what people complain about carriers, and I guess what are some of these complaints? What do they mean? What are their origins? Maybe.
So these are some of the ones that I have heard a lot, as well as some rather colorful explanatives thereof. Carriers do too much damage. The idea that basically a carrier can just auto dunk something.
If they want me out of the battle, they'll take me out of the battle. Right? That's the complaint, basically. Yeah.
Yep. There's no risk for massive rewards. I'm
guilty of that one. I say that one.
People say that there's no risk for CVs all the time, and there is a partial truth to that, and not. So that one's going to be an interesting one to get into. There's no counter to CVs. A lot of people I've come across say, you can't do anything besides sit there and die. Okay, no, you can, but or AA does nothing. That there's actually people who've created sound bites of a streamer screaming AA does nothing. And it's like, wow, okay. So AA is not an auto delete. You can't just delete the planes out of the air. So, but the idea that I am not seeing them get deleted and I still get hit anyway, feels bad.
It does feel, and you can't shoot down shells either. You can't shoot down torpedoes either. Literally, and I'm gonna say the thing at the bottom. The only thing you can do to those is just dodge, right? I don't want to, farm that too heavily, but like, I mean, it's just like a lot of other ordinances. We can't stop them all. And you're right, it feels bad. We feel like we should be making some progress. We should be doing something, and everything. Mal says AA used to delete before the rework. It was awesome as a non-CV player. When you were in remember Texas? Texas was such a good AA platform at Tier 5, and there were Tier 5 CVs to fight, and you would just smoke them all, right?
Scott is like, I can't punish cruisers, subs are unfair.
All of that, that's a great comment from Scott there. Thanks, man.
Continuing on down, CVs can be anywhere on the map, because the idea that basically they can spot anything and do anything.
Yeah.
That's, when this entire game is predicated around concealment, it makes it really frustrating when you're trying to be sneaky and a CV finds you.
Yeah.
But there's some stuff we're going to talk about on that one too. The allied CVs never support. It's like, why aren't you giving me fighter cover? It's like you're sitting there screaming, I need AA support, and the CV basically just rolls past you and goes a different direction instead of coming over and dropping a fighter. This is annoying for so many people.
Yes.
CV spotting is overpowered. So that's another one that kind of like the CVs can be anywhere. It's similar vein.
That one has already come up in chat earlier in the discussion, and Wargaming is doing something about CV spotting, so they agree that is a fact. CV spotting is overpowered. I will actually agree with you that is probably the single biggest area the CVs are currently overpowered. Yeah.
So I'm going to be very interested to see what Wargaming is doing with that one.
I want to be as sneaky as Smeagol, says Dostal.
Wow.
Yeah, we all do, homie. We all do. Yeah, but I mean, for real. So we know spotting is a problem for the game. It's been a problem for years, and we'll talk about that for sure. It is very, very powerful. And it's, to my opinion, and I'm sure there is data that drives some of this, or at least that would describe if I'm right or wrong. I think that's one of the reasons why we don't often see them in ranked, and we never see them in clan battles anymore. Is that spotting factor carries an immense amount of influence on a battle.
Yeah, and Leviathan, I'm actually going to get into something regarding that specifically. He's talking. That's a great comment. But I would also say that it is less common to see a very skilled CV player than it is a very skilled cruiser or battleship player, and as a general rule.
But we still have to couple that with the battle influence that a CV has compared to those other ships, because it is high.
Yep.
Boy, it's really delicate.
You were right.
It's very delicate.
But there is something that I do want to. Can you do me a favor and make sure we hit that on the notes? The skill set gap between CVs.
That's a great idea.
Because I do want to talk about that, because that's a great one.
Between the CV players. Okay.
CVs cannot be deplaned. The old RTS CVs could be deplaned. Now they can't be, and people are upset by this. So,
well, and especially with the new CVs with all their tactical squadrons, right? That comment's coming up a lot now. Sorry, keep going. I totally interrupted you there.
No, you're fine. And then fighter, lol. Yeah,
that's another complaint that I personally make, is that the fighter is the worst consumable in the game. And it's so bad. Why would you ever take the fighter? I only take it when I have to take it because it's trash. Even on ships that are inaccurate, I take the spotter out of principle. This is the thing I say all the time. And I don't mean to be like that guy. No, that's not the dream, but it feels that ineffective.
Yeah. And Wargaming kind of had the answer of, well, if you just dodge it, was kind of the answer. And, the infamous, they had that poor who was not good at talking to people up there, talking to a bunch of and DC just steamrolled and said, so basically you're telling us the spreadsheets are saying we're having fun.
Yeah.
And just totally cut off the engineer, didn't want to hear what he had to say.
Engineers have, so I work in technology with software developers and things, and they think about and look at problems different than gamers do. And you work in technology as well, right? So like we've got experience with this kind of mindset. When I say they, I should say we, but like they think about things different than gamers do. And they have to solve problems using different approaches than gamers think about the problems that they're experiencing. And it's because the way that gamers think about things is often not going to lead to a well-engineered product. That doesn't mean that engineers and coders are always right and that they're always going to make the right decisions and so on. Big Data says spreadsheets are never wrong. I am biased towards spreadsheets, he says.
Says the guy with the name Big Data.
Right. And Malmaster says, I dislike these wargaming spreadsheets. Understood and everything. And so what happens in those situations is we often have communication problems, right? Where I think I've watched that video. I know the video you're talking about. They did a wargaming CC summit. I think this one was in St. Petersburg, and they had a number of folks there, including CCs that you know and former CCs as well. And both of these people, I think, had valid points in that conversation. But one of them, for his entertainment, is a very charismatic and charming and like player based driven kind of communicator, and the other guy's an engineer who's like, well, yeah, but like constraints and problems and technical solutions, and so like, yeah, obviously the social interaction was going to be won by the guy with the high charisma score when he rolled his d20, right? And that isn't to say the other guy isn't very charismatic, or I'm sure he's fine, but you know, these guys who are streamers, that's what they do, and so obviously they're going to have a great way to connect with the audience. So that just dodge LOL that has become a big thing. Scotta's comment earlier about this slide brought to you by Reddit, where people go to farm hatred about the game or whatever, is pretty spot
I missed
on
that
too.
one.
Oh, it was pretty good. You'll catch on the replay. You were saying something, and I came in with this long, annoying, interrupting speech. Maybe not annoying.
No,
but,
you're fine.
Yeah, talking about just dodging instead of using your fighter, because dodging is your best tool, right? I think. Anyway.
So
yeah, go ahead, please.
I don't know. Do we want to start diving into some of those things now?
We can. I mean, I think we've kind of covered this. There are more complaints than this, guys. And again, a lot of these come from a place of frustration, and they are real. Even if you know, what a lot of players will do is they'll say, no counter to CVs exist, or CV spotting is overpowered. If only they would do this simple thing, it would solve all of my problems.
Manual control AA for
manual control AA, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so like maybe those would solve the problems, maybe they wouldn't. And so we have to make sure we separate the complaint from the proposed solution, because sometimes I think that people's proposed solutions are good, sometimes I think they're bad, but the complaint is rooted in something real. It comes from frustration, and video games are intended to be fun, and they're intended to be something that we enjoy to do. It's a diversion. It should not cause us the same kind of stress that we have in our regular life. It should help us relieve that kind of stress and enjoy ourselves and have a good time. And so when we see these complaints, sometimes I think people like to complain because they're just sad, angry people. And I think everybody who's dropping a complaint is feeling something that is causing them to go to the internet and shout into the void, right? So there's something real to each one of these. And then of course, how we respond to those as other gamers, and how Wargaming responds to them as the company that's trying to develop and promote the game. Of course, is either good, bad, or in the middle or something. But any final thoughts about complaints coming from you? I just wanted to give a little roundup there myself, but anything from you, Cypher, before we go on and look at our next item?
So I would want to preface before we go any further. Clyde had brought up a point when we were talking about this, and I absolutely love this point. Neither one of us claim to be experts.
Yeah, this is good. Yeah.
I know my way around a flight deck, but I'm not going to sit here and try to tell you that I'm the best CV player out there. Basically, I enjoy the game. I've played a lot of matches in it. I do this for sheer entertainment, but at the end of the day, it's a game. So I always look at it from the aspect of, how do I deal with the game in its current iteration? I can whine about it, but I'm not one of the devs. So my best way to handle that is, how do I deal with this current iteration? And everything that we started with on the rest of today's discussion, all the data I was farming, it was, okay, let's just see what the actual data is behind this and how to address it. So that's kind of what I wanted to drop a preface. Did you want to add anything to that, Clyde?
I do. Just I like that idea, right? Which is shoot, did I just forget what I was going to say? What did you just say? What did you just say? You just said like an important thing, and it was profound, and I was going to add to it.
We're not experts, but the idea of collecting the data so we can talk about how to deal with the game in its current iteration. But at the end of the day, it's a game.
That's right. So the game is what it is, right? And the fun of the game, and sometimes this winds up being more fun, and sometimes it winds up being less fun. The fun of the game is, that is pretty good, is understanding what the current scenario is and learning how to be the best you can be in that scenario. And right now the scenario has carriers, that spot really good, maybe too good or too well, I should say. It's got fighters LOL that don't work, and, you know, it's got too many CVs and too many games. It's got all of those things, right? And so like, that is the game. That is the problem to solve, and that is the challenge that's been set before you. Now, hopefully you like it and you can get out there and
chime in here real quick. I'm sorry. I want to interrupt for a brief second, because Mal actually brings up some of it's been over 8 years. Yes.
I saw that comment. Yeah.
I want to add 2 things on this just for framing, because a lot of people don't always think about these things. The RTS CVs were completely reworked and removed from the game, what, 4 years ago now?
3+, maybe 4. Yeah.
Yeah, somewhere in there. Wow. So that's one. So it's only been current iteration for about 4 years, give or take. And that's just rough memory of dates. Don't quote me on that. The other thing is Wargaming, due to the war in Ukraine, closed down all of their Russian offices. They had to relocate and hire an entire new staff to come in and try and figure out how to pick up the pieces. That's why the CVs and sub tweaks have taken so long, because they had to get all new staff. That's something to think about. It's been over 8 years. Yeah, that's frustrating to us that have been playing it.
Yeah, but
they can only code so fast.
For sure. You know, and that's a lot that they certainly lost a lot of experience and knowledge there when they separated from Lesta. And the other thing about it's been over 8 years is, guys, it's been over 8 years, right? They're going to be here in the game, right? And Mal's, you know, we know Mal stops by the stream. I don't know if he spends time on your channel or not, but there's a lot to think about. And I think wargaming in turn, the other thing I always like to think about is, you know, somebody who works in the tech industry myself, there's a lot of objectives and motivations and things that companies have that are not the same things that players have, right? They have other content deliveries that they have to be making. Like Wargame's been cranking out so many ships and so much content lately. It's, in my opinion, I feel like it's too much. Because I'll have players show up on my channel and be like, hey, have you analyzed this one piece of what's going on and all of the tons of crap that Wargaming's rocketing out to us with t-shirt cannons every day? And I go, no, I looked at the other 17 things. Sorry, I feel uninformed, right? It's a challenge as a CC and as a streamer and as a player in this game to keep up with everything. So we know that there's some driving force that's, you know, as the company as a whole is putting a lot of stuff out. And that means that things like, can you go back and work on old content like that's already been rolled out, that doesn't drive company goals a lot of the time. And those goals, I mean, we can talk about profits and money and greed and all that stuff. That is definitely some of the goal. It's a business that's trying to make money, absolutely. And then the other side of it is that new products are the things that marketing and the main company is going to be interested in. I love the idea that they're going back and looking at spotting right now. This is huge. I will tell you, in my business, when you know, working with my customers, when we deliver stuff to them, and then we go later, we go, hey, it didn't come out as good as we thought. We really feel like this is a great place to invest money. They go, we already paid you to make that, right? And we go, I know, but it's not as good as what you wanted. It doesn't meet XYZ requirements. It doesn't do this, right? And we go, we got to do it again. And they go, we already paid you to do that. We're moving on. Sometimes that's what happens from the people with the money, right? As a developer, you want to fix everything, but you don't always get the, you know, the loosened reins to do so.
Yeah.
X-Men Rico has a really long comment. Have you had a chance to read it while I was flapping my gums there?
I believe so. Hang on a sec. Yes, I did read that one.
Yeah. Take a swing at that while I read it, and then we'll talk about it.
So yeah, what I'm going to preface this by simply saying is, I don't work for Wargaming. I'm not a Wargaming fanboy. I enjoy the game. I enjoy history. But I have no idea, and unless we work for Wargaming, none of us have any idea what's going on behind those closed doors or why the decisions are made the way they are.
I always say they don't ask me when they decide to make changes on the game. Nobody calls me and goes, hey, Clyde, we were thinking about making this, but we really want to get your buy-in. Like, that doesn't happen, right? We don't know.
So, but what it boils down to is this is the state of the game.
Yeah.
And this is what parameters I'm working in to try and be as effective as I can for my team. Because I like a good win rate and a good PR, but that's just me. So, and that's kind of what I want to try and maybe assist people with today is how to be the most effective when dealing with CVs in today's current iteration. Things will change. And they always do. Every time they release a new line that has better AA, it makes me go, "Oh crap!" you know?
Yeah.
So,
for sure. Well, and you know, they're. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I think there's a lot of comments coming up about the RTS versus the current, and I think we need to go into that a little bit, just to kind of get historical background.
Well, let's do that. Hang on, I thought there was a comment up here I wanted to grab as well. It was from Howie. Howie says, you know, the people who complain the most are the competitive clans, and CVs don't even matter in clan battles. So I'm confused. You know, I think every group looks around and points at the other group and says, those guys are always bitching, right? To use an adult word there for just one moment. I see a lot of complaints from a lot of areas of the internet on this. I do see complaints about CVs from highly competitive, highly competent, highly skilled players. And those guys tend to say things that get a lot of weight, and then those things get quoted a lot because people follow them. They watch them on YouTube, they watch them on stream, or they know them as a person from the tournament scene or something like that. And it's certainly not just the competitive scene, because I also see those players, like I talked about earlier, players who don't understand aircraft carriers because they've never played one. And they're players who are, we'll say, still learning, right? They're working on getting a really good command of the game, and they feel like a victim to the CV because they don't know how to stop it, and they struggle. These are I would say lower skill players, right? Who sometimes will gripe about this stuff because they feel powerless, and they don't do the things that make them empowered to deal with this scenario. Now, I'm not trying to describe anybody in chat, but if you feel seen right now, please don't feel insulted about that. These are just different perspectives that different players are going to have when dealing with this thing. You guys have watched me on stream become incredibly frustrated about a submarine chasing me when I'm alone on a flank in a battleship, and it's two divved submarines. I'm thinking of a very specific game right now. Maybe you watched it. Chasing me, pinging me, constantly shooting. These were submarines that were not killing me. They weren't even doing a good job, but they ruined my experience for the whole game while my team went around and won. Thank you, Scotta, and I think Brand. But like, you know, that very frustrating game made me very, very upset. And it was in part because I was over there by myself doing dumb guy things, playing like a total potato, fighting two submarines in a battleship at tier 7 or whatever it was, right? And it sucked, and I was mad about it, but it was because I did dumb things to get into that scenario, right? And so I see complaints coming from players of all across the skill spectrum. Cypher, any thoughts on, you know, where you're seeing? Do you feel like you get more complaints from one group of players or another? Is it just people who play, you know, Spanish cruisers? Like, who are the or do you think it's everybody and in equal measure?
I've never actually tried to track where I get the complaints from. I can tell you my karma right now is only in double digits because probably I was playing some surface ships somewhat recently. But I get reported more often than I care to count. We joke, we kind of joke during my stream about how bad my karma rating is, and I've come into the game and gotten reported just because I showed up in a CV.
You have positive karma right now, by the way, which I am impressed by.
19. I have a whopping 19 karma.
It's positive, boys and girls. Positive karma as a CV main. Like, anyway, keep going. That's an achievement.
I digress. I don't think it's any in particular group, but what I do notice that's pretty consistent about everybody who complains to me about CVs is it's a lot of feeling rather than data, or it's an anecdotal fact, and is 9 times out of 10 that anecdotal fact is something that they probably could have countered to some degree or another if they knew more about the CV.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, yep. The more we know, the more we can perform.
Now that's actually, not every time.
About some of that today, actually.
Yeah, that's definitely not every time, but that's just probably the largest commonality that I notice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So.
Okay, you wanted to go somewhere a second ago. I think it was about RTS CVs versus not RTS CVs.
Yeah.
So a little history lesson. So I'm going to go back to our main page here for this.
the RTS CVs, the whole reason why Wargaming stated that they were going to change this, and they you could actually look back at the videos predating 0.8.0, which was the CV rework. When they were talking about the CV rework, the problem was less than 1% of the populace played that class.
Mm-hmm.
They were also worried about anybody who has ever played against like femininely in a Hakuryu, triple dropping and cross dropping torpedoes on you, you were instantly depth struck by her. It was insane. She could do that almost every match, and it was just like one after another. I watched her get 3 depth strikes in a single match. I was like,
yeah. For those of you guys who haven't played the game for years, and we will spend a reasonable amount of time on history here, because I know some people don't care. Hey, Jetty. Some people don't care about the history because it's the past, but like for those those of us crusty old timers playing our banjos, sitting in the rocking chairs on the porch of the house, we have to talk about this, because otherwise our ulcers will flare up, right? But
yeah, and some people have brought it up, so I mean there is a rationale on why things are the way they are now, because of the RTS, which is why I wanted to bring it up as a relevancy.
No, absolutely, and it definitely, you know, your history defines kind of where you are now. And where you are now is going to define kind of what we need to do in the future, what we hope to see in the future. But you know, I remember playing back in my old apartment. This is how long ago it was. I lived in a different place, and I would be playing World of Warships, and I'd load into a match. I would check matchmaking monitor. Thanks to CVs, I use matchmaking monitor. I don't think I've ever told you guys that. That's why I started to use this thing, is because CVs were in the game, and you would load in, and there would be a CV that averaged 180,000 damage, and they had an 85% win rate. And these are not exaggerating numbers. They were screen names that you got to know. I don't remember them today because it's been 4 or 5 years, but but you knew the names of the players. So sometimes you didn't even have to look at what was going on the matchmaking monitor, but you did anyway, because you wanted to know how screwed you were, because it was awful. But you would load in and you'd be like, I don't even know why I'm playing, right? And people say those things today. Those people have no idea what it was like if they didn't play back then. It was so much worse before.
Yeah. Well, not only could they, I mean, CVs getting dev strikes now is almost, I mean, is such a small thing, but I used to get them all the time in the Langley and the Bogue.
I mean, it can happen and with any of them.
Yeah, it was nuts. I just dev strike. It was absolutely insane. The ability to cross drop, the manual drop, et cetera, et cetera.
The cross hatching with 2 torpedoes squadrons in the Zuio in Tier 5, which had 5 squadrons that you could be flying simultaneously. Oh, it was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys think it's bad now, I mean, imagine some carriers had 5, 6, 7 squadrons, and they could send them out different directions. You want to talk about spotting on a map?
I mean, it was like, if you had 5
squadrons,
it was 5 times as much spotting, assuming all other things are equal, which they're not. But
and then but here was one of the key reasons why they or 2 key things they wanted to address. One, well, they wanted to feel more like the rest of the game with the kind of perspective of gun cam kind of deal. So plane cam, gun cam has a similar feel versus the top-down RTS was completely divorced. Another thing that they wanted to change was CVs were so influential in RTS days. So influential to the point where people say they're influential now, and they are, but back then, the skill difference between the CVs, if they were not closely matched, 85% of the time was the stats that Wargaming, that's directly from Wargaming, 85% of the time, the better CV would win the match, regardless of the other 11 players on either team.
Right.
The better CV would win the match. And it was, I mean, that's completely unbalanced. That was a joke.
Yeah.
The other problem was, if a CV got deplaned, and it was very possible to do in RTS, especially if that skill gap between the CVs was bad. I was notorious for taking out fighter spec US CVs and just obliterating and getting the achievement Clear Sky.
Oh yeah.
Which was basically AA defense expert, but I would just annihilate them and remove all their planes. It was great. If that happens, if you get deplaned, you are now an empty husk and can do nothing for your team besides try and run away.
Yeah. I remember when you would get deplaned in the old RTS days, and you were really deplaned then. And then all you could do was try to cap if you had an open side, or drag the game out as long as you could just to be a troll, I guess.
Yeah.
Jetty had a comment a while back that I thought was a really good one. I wanted to go grab.
I missed it.
And this is kind of about general complaints, so we're kind of taking a step back and then we'll meet back here again. But he says gamers in general are terrible about taking their feelings and trying to express them as facts. This is true of all software users, but gamers are often very emotional and they feel really smart because they're really good at the game, and so that's a bad mix. A bad mix of feelings, really great skill, and of course being angry about it. And being having a trouble to disperse these as facts. He says feelings don't feel authoritative enough in the anonymous format of the internet, but it turns out that when you're playing a game, having fun feelings is the whole point. So it should be enough, right? He said, so that's enough. I said, so it should be enough.
I agree.
Yeah, and it's hard to get that feels bad communicated to such a level that people go, we have to take action on this, right? And so that's part of the challenge as players, is articulating, this sucks, it makes me feel angry because of this. And then that allows an engineer to look at that and go, okay, so that means we can do XYZ as a resolution or a band-aid or whatever. But yeah, man, back in the day, it didn't really matter if I was playing a destroyer or battleship or how good I was or bad I was. My CVs either won or lost the game, and I got XP because of their efforts, right?
Bowmaster, you pretty much summed it right there. I screwed up. I got clapped because I did a game return, but damn this unbalanced stuff. Wargaming sucks.
Yeah.
It happens because we naturally don't want to take the blame. Especially Westerners, we do not want to take the blame for our own mistakes. We want to find something else to point it at and say, I didn't do it.
Mal says venting is a way to alleviate frustration. That's true. And when we're done venting, right, we got to turn around and go, okay, great. What do I do about it, right? But so it's okay to experience. I'm not a counselor. I don't know what I'm talking about. It's okay to experience emotions, to feel them, and to do that. People are going to think we're real soft the way we're talking about emotions today. But it's okay to experience that. You're going to. You can't stop it, right? But and then what do we do based on that? That is up to us, right? And so that's the next piece. But I think you're right. Venting is a great way to alleviate frustration.
I agree.
And there are safe environments in which to vent, and that's safe and legitimate environments in which to vent. That's good too. But then what you do next is definitely up to you.
So did you want to dive into any of the some of what we started pulling up?
Yes, I do. So I'm just going to go to this next one. So we talked a lot about how often we see games with CVs. And it used to be that you'd have CVs, and this is Clyde's number. This is not a real number. Back in the RTS days, we would have something like 10 or maybe 15% of our games would have CVs in them. And then when they did the CV rework, as a destroyer, I was a destroyer main back then. Now I'm a heavy destroyer player, but maybe not a main anymore. All of a sudden, 50 to 80% of my games had CVs in them. And so I felt like spotting really got out of hand because the game had been balanced for years and years against a 10% chance of me seeing a CV. This is based off the data that we collected. You had a bunch of data that you gave me, and then I had some data from a recent video I worked on. So we had 427 battles. Which is not an enormous number of battles, but it's probably significant enough to have a rough understanding of what's going on. And you're going to see at least one CV, so 1 or 2 CVs in 56% of your games, rounding up. And then we complain a lot about the 2 carrier thing. And I can't tell you if I think 4.22% is more or less than what the number should be. Some players will say it should never happen. Okay, I like the idea of 1 CV per game all the time. But in about 4.2% of your games, you're going to have 2 carriers. I don't know.
Clef, Clef, all the stats that we got for these. So there were a couple of people who graciously provided me all of their replays for an entire patch. Clyde, Clefender was one. Attempted Dodge, Big GD3.
Yeah.
And I'm forgetting somebody.
Trust Anyone who plays on EU.
Yeah.
And some of my games would have been on EU as well. maybe like 3 or 5%, but the vast majority of these games are on NA for sure.
Yeah. So but thank you to everybody who provided this data because it made my job a lot easier rather than trying to play that many matches by myself. But what it was mostly NA and some EU, but it seems to be pretty consistent across them, and that's going to be all of the data that we collected is from those battles.
Yeah, SFNL points out that we could just use the API. It's true. I have not prioritized writing code to do that myself, and I haven't made enough friends who've got the tools, and I haven't gotten those from others to do this, which is definitely something I'm interested in doing in the future. But we had this data around. Like I said, I had probably, I think about 300 or 350 of these battles are from a data collection of mine, and then you brought in a couple of hundreds. I know, and we've talked about it, but I haven't gotten that from you yet. I need to do that, SFNL. SFNL's got like 150,000 games or something. It's just sitting there from various players and servers all around the world, which is awesome. Go ahead.
Now, this is kind of a double-edged sword too thing. So, do I like the idea of 2 CVs in a battle? Not really, but I understand why Wargaming does it. Because if queue times are too long, and by the way, if you have a question about queue times in Matchmaker, Clyde did a great video. I'm going to plug him just because I can. He didn't ask me to do this. He did a great fireside chat with Foaming Jetty, where they discussed this. But if they make Matchmaker queue too long, it's going to become more frustrating and aggravating for players. That's why the double CV matches exist, but you will not see them above tier 8.
Now, the other thing,
tier 10 and super CVs will never be a double CV match.
Right.
So
I want to jump in and say real quick, somebody is about to say this in chat. They're typing it right now, which is, well, yeah, but I'd wait longer for queue times. And of course you would. Anybody who watches live streams of World of Warships is probably willing to wait longer, right? The masses are less likely to do that. And so, when Wargaming says this is a bad thing for the game, trust us, I believe them, and it's okay. But I'd wait longer for queue times too. Thank you, Jetty. You're saving me. You're making me a truth teller. You saved me from being a liar there. But I mean, I would wait longer for queue times too. I'd be happy to wait for that. However, I'm a diehard with 8 years of experience and pretty almost every ship in the game. Of course, I would wait. I would do anything to even slightly improve my gaming experience in a game that I'm super, super passionate about and excited about. But a lot of players would not, right? And so we understand that everybody who's on this channel right now, if you're willing to listen to this, a couple of these jokers talk about CVs for this long, you are the exception to the norm, to use Foamy Jetty's comment up there. We are the exception to the norm in terms of players and their interest and their commitment, I guess, to waiting in a longer queue. That said, I think we're going to do some stuff there. Yeah, go ahead.
Is Armored Prayer, I do have a question about how much longer queue times would really be if they made it only with CV. Given the fact that it's only in 4.2% of the matches that the CVs were in to begin with. That's not total. That's of that 55%. Only 4.2 of those matches had double CVs. So would it be that much longer?
Actually,
overall, probably not huge. But
actually, that is 4.2% of all of your games, but the 55 includes the 4.2, just to be clear.
Okay, sorry, I had it backward.
No,
so,
okay.
But yeah, I mean, still, it's not a lot. But I mean, that's a whole nother coding question, what they're going to do with Matchmaker. But it is a source of frustration. Now, here's the other piece of frustration with this. And if you don't know if a CV is going to be in a match, I can't tell you how many times I've heard somebody say, "Oh, yeah, I'm going to take out the Holland," and of course, there's no CV.
Right.
Or I'm going to take the Agincourt. Crap, there's a CV.
Crap, there's two CVs. That happened to me once. I was very sad about it. They both took turns beating the hell out of me.
Right, but you never know what's going to be in the match. You don't know how many radars there are going to be. That you don't know. You don't know anything besides you're going to be in a 3-tier range max, unless somebody fail-dived. But so from that aspect, it makes it really hard to say, do I want to spec into AA or not? And that's frustrating.
Yes. You're spending captain points, you're spending equipment slots, you're putting signals on, you're choosing consumables, and then, and Howie just said this, 40% of the time, 44% of the time, really, it didn't do you any good, right? I mean, I guess you could shoot down somebody's spotter plane that you got too close to. Well, okay.
Yeah.
right? I don't
Well,
know.
if you div with the CV, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
Well, we're gonna see
But
that with the upcoming Commonwealth line. If you div with a submarine, right? We're gonna see
right?
that happen for sure. Yeah, so anyway, this is carrier frequency. I think we want to jump to our next thing and talk
Yeah.
a little bit about some of the attack efficiency. So this is something that's kind of interesting too. Again, this is based on a small number of games. So is this definitive data-driven discussion? No, this is anecdotal, and I don't want anybody to think that me and Cypher are pretending we're data scientists and we've calculated distributions and we made some spreadsheets, okay? And it's based on a relatively small number of games. So as we go to this stuff, don't think of this as something that you should go quote and use to make arguments against people, because it's probably not going to stand up, but it's enough to get us some fodder to start our conversation. So let me go to our attack number there. So this first slide talks a little bit about strike time and the damage earned as a CV per attack. Now, again, very, very, very small number of battles. It's 25 total battles, 17 battles for Cypher, and 8 battles for us non-CV mains. This is not definitive data, and we're not presenting it as such. That said, it's a good anecdote to explain, or at least to start a conversation about some of the things here that are going on. So, Cypher, when you look at this table of data, what are you taking away from this, or what aspects of it do you want to talk about with the chat today?
So there's a couple of things. First of all, I, as a CV main, I want you to take a look at that average time to strike. And this is including striking when I get more than one strike in a squadron. So if I strike, loop around, and strike again, that's factored into that timing. Flight time is a big deal to a CV. It is a big deal. So if you factor that in, I'm still at almost 50 seconds, 47.6 seconds. That's longer than a battleship reload for something that usually hits a little bit harder than a heavy cruiser.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And when you consider average damage per attack is 7,200, and I'm doing 7,200 damage every 47 seconds, 48 seconds. And that's for somebody who basically spends a lot of time in CVs.
To counter that slightly, if I wanted to be like, yeah, but Cypher, you're full of crap, this is how I would do it. I would say, but Cypher, you're full of crap, because we'd have to do that same math for battleships. And obviously we need 200 games or more, because battleships get overpens, they get ricochets off of ships they shouldn't get ricochets off of, all of that stuff for sure.
Oh, yeah.
And so as we think about battleship damage, we imagine the Citadel, but we need to make sure we imagine the overpen, we imagine the dispersion where you miss the shells fall short, and then
but CVs can still get overpens, non-pens.
You can miss because you're trying to do rockets over an island, or you would just get smart enough to not do that anymore, right? Malmasters points out, but you have unlimited range. But that unlimited range goes back to the strike time thing that Cypher was talking about. Yes, you have unlimited range, but you don't want to fly from A1 to J10 every attack. Obviously, that's ridiculous. And so there's a balancing factor in there too that helps to make, if you really want to optimize, like mathematically optimize for those attacks, you've got to be as close as you possibly can be so that you never get, so that you don't die, but that you can do the maximum influence. But you do have an unlimited range. You can fly anywhere you want and affect any ship on the board. That is definitely a true statement.
Yeah, it is. But again, if you look at the average time to strike for me versus the non-CV mains, a good CV main will try to position themselves in a way that they can do one strike into another, and they can do it quickly because they've moved their hull. A lot of CV mains or a lot of non-CV mains will either let their carrier just sit there, or I've watched them just hit S the second the battle starts and they back up to the back of the map because they don't want to be in the way, which is increasing their strike time, which means their damage drops. So if you, which kind of falls into suit to that. And there's been a couple things in here. Snow Mongoose, it doesn't factor in things like incidental spotting. This is true.
Totally true. This is just about damage.
Now,
that's true.
It's not the entire flight because I have to, unless I'm right on top of the planes. So that's a little bit of a misnomer. But this is also only talking about the sheer strike capability of the CV. We're going to definitely get to spotting though. There was a couple other comments in here.
There's been a lot of comments in here. There's been some really good discussion.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Jetty said something about unlimited range. He kind of chimed in on a similar topic that I addressed as well, which was if a battleship was actually getting an average of 7,000 real damage every 45 seconds, they'd be pretty above average in their application of damage. And I agree. That's totally true, right? That's why we would want to do this for BBs too, to really compare.
Right. That's something that unfortunately we didn't have the time to do.
Yeah.
Now, what I will say though is, we're looking at my damage of 7,000. There's several CVs that I'm Unicum or Super Unicum in. Most of my CVs are great, or at least very good. So I'm.
So you're talking like blue in the matchmaking monitor or on WoW's numbers.
Blue, pink, or purple.
Yeah.
So Ed, I don't want to sit here and I'm not all that in a bag of chips, but I'm not within the average.
But you told me before we got on stream that you were all that and a bag of chips. No,
it was cookies. It was cookies. Get around.
No, yeah, but you're a competent CV player, right? I mean, I think I'm like 2 of those battles on the non-CV mains, and my chat at least knows my ability to play CVs, which is pretty medium to mediocre. Like, let's be realistic. And I think you were about to talk about kind of the difference in efficacy there between those 2 groups of players, in terms of what they can expect for output.
And foaming, you do have a good point about the conversation about damage or red herring. I wouldn't say they're a red herring, because we're going to be addressing some of the other things. It was just one of those things we wanted to bring it up about the average strike time. Yeah. So in between the differences.
And it's by the way, it's perfectly okay to point out things like that. Well, yeah, but some of the other problems are worse. That's okay. That's what we're talking about today. This is just one aspect, and we're trying to spawn conversation. So if that happens, that's a good thing. I ain't worried about it.
Yep.
Yeah. Go ahead, Cypher. Sorry, you were saying something.
No, I'm just saying yep and agreeing.
Yeah. But I mean, if you look at like the difference, like you as a player who plays CVs a lot, in other words, as a player who's practiced, as a player who understands the platform, you're more than doubling my damage. And you're attacking, let's assume I'm the non-CV main. I'm not all those games. But like, you're more than doubling my damage. You're attacking much more frequently than I am. And so I think that there's probably a takeaway here that's safe to make, even though Jetty was like, hang on, this might not be as good to draw all the conclusions to understand the frustration that is caused by CVs. But the thing I think that we can take away from this is if you, and this is obvious, I don't think anybody is going to no one's going to be like, wow, I learned something amazing today. But the obvious thing is that if you focus on CVs and get good at them, if you practice them, you'll be a lot more effective, right? And that's on the attacking side of things. There's a little bit more we have about damage here. I want to jump to that unless you've got another thought before we leave this graphic. Okay. The other here is, this one here is a survey of about 70 battles. And this is just talking about damage per minute in CVs. And so this is kind of similar to the last slide or the last graphic that we had in terms of damage per minute compared between non-CV mains and Angelic Cypher as a player who's a blue or purple player on in most of his CVs. Huge difference in damage per minute during the game. And then the other piece that we're looking at is obviously that damage per minute is coming from doing more attacks. We saw that on the last graphic. And it's also coming from being more efficient with those attacks. And then the thing that I love about this, and we talked about this just before we got online today, is that you lose more planes than me, right? You lose more planes than the non-CV mains. Largely, that's probably because you're doing more attacks. You're more efficiently getting your pilots into positions where they can take damage. But what's cool about that is you're using that resource more fully. It's a more efficient use of those airplanes. Of course, thankfully, there's no human beings inside that we're sending into battle, but you're getting more of those planes shot down on your side. You're giving more XP to the enemy team. It's so generous of you. But really what's going on is you're just getting more damage in the process. Yeah.
Now, Leviathan, actually, most of these were tier 8. So kind of one of the things that I kind of wanted to show here is when you look at your average players, most of your average players are going to be, for both surface ships and CVs, are going to be more in that non-CV main category.
Sure.
For whatever they're playing. So is it frustrating when you can come up against somebody who can do that kind of damage? Yeah. But yeah, I mean, you get those guys who are really, really stupid good shots with a Slava that delete you from across the map, and you're like, you know, it's gonna happen in every class to some degree or another. But what one of the things that we wanted to illustrate with this was really the average CV player. When you look at their average damage versus some of the super unicums, you can't always take somebody like AF Short on Water. He's arguably one of the best CV players in the game. You can't take his stats and say, but see, he did this, he did a thing, and I deleted everybody, ergo this class is broken.
Right.
Wake is I can't remember the guy's name, but he just broke the record on the
Ruthless. John the Ruthless just broke the North American server damage record. Yeah.
And say, this guy, the Colbert is broken.
Yeah, sorry, I just saw Scottish comment.
Right. Scott, not true. He can.
SFNL said, it doesn't matter what ship John is playing, he'll destroy you. And Scott said, he can't hurt me if I don't log in effectively, which I love. I think that's funny. But that's the thing, right? And a lot of players, you know, we see this with content creators all around the internet. Not just content creators, but skilled players, tournament players, that kind of thing. Players will watch those videos and everything, and some guy on YouTube or on Twitch or in a tournament will do something like what John did. They'll go get 500,000, 600,000 damage or whatever in a cruiser that's very hard to play, and then everyone will be like, that ship's so good, I'm gonna go get that ship. And it's like me buying Jordans, right? I'm not going to be able to dunk if I buy Jordans. That's just not something that is going to happen in my lifetime. I am over 40 and I am not active. I'm not physically active. So it's not happening for me, kids. But like, you know, just putting me in a pair of Jordans and basketball shorts ain't going to do it, right? So like, there's some stuff there that we need to understand that that people who are of incredible skill level are going to be able to do amazing things no matter what they're playing. You can give them the worst ship in the game and they'll still school you. So we have to separate that. We have to separate the worst players as well, right? And I'm not trying to trash anybody, but there is a spectrum of player skill, and there are going to be players on the left side and there are going to be players on the right side, best players and worst players. And those guys on the left side will not be able to do anything no matter what we give them, right? But those players in the middle, that's the rest of us. That's me. Hopefully, and we can influence the battle. We can increase our skill and do better. We can learn and get knowledgeable and survive longer, do all those things. I feel like you're eager to say something. Go.
Well, I'm reading chat while you're talking.
Yeah, go ahead. What do you got from chat?
Dostel, what would be the one thing I would change? Well, first of all, I'm not a dev, so I can't change anything. But
but what would be the one thing, Cypher? What would?
If I was, I would tell you that they're actually already looking at addressing it. CV spotting.
Yeah, that's a huge one.
Because it's if you remove the spotting, or maybe not remove it, but figure out some way to reduce its impact, I think it would make CVs a lot more bearable. Even if you left their damage exactly where it is, but you made it so the spotting was a lot more I don't want to say realistic, because this is frankly an arcade game, it's not a simulator.
It's not a realistic
game. Lot more the way it would have been. Fighter spotting, well, Dutch Eagle, they've changed some of that. Like there's several CVs right now that only have a 2.5 click max spotting range.
That's from all of the fighter, new CVs, the deployed fighters.
Yep. So now their regular planes can spot out to whatever the range is of, or the aerial concealment of said ship is. If they fly into it, they can see them.
Yeah.
No, not just interceptors, Master.
There's also interceptors, which don't spot, but they're really good at being fighters. And then the thing I think you're talking about is regular fighters that have a reduced spotting bubble.
Yes.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So
it's kind of a two-pronged thing.
Right. Right now they've got a total of 4 CVs in the game that have the 2.5 click spotting range. But I think this is something that that they're looking at is going to be huge for dealing with CVs.
Howie's got an interesting comment too. This is not one I've heard before, which is put in a short delay in relaying spots, like we see with radar. You have a 5-second delay before your radar shares those things with allied players. That's an interesting thing. I don't know if they've explored that. I'm sure they've maybe I would say I would guess they've thought of it, but that's a cool idea I've not thought of before.
Armored prayer only if they are if the CV is if the plane is in range of the max concealment when they fire.
So in other words, when the gun bloom gets bigger, if that's within their 2.5 or whatever kilometers range, then they would see that ship, is what you're saying.
Right.
So what you're saying is gun bloom does affect plane spotting, but it's really that the ship got more spottable and now the plane can see them. I got you. Okay.
Now, here's the thing about CV spotting, and this is not a fix, guys, but this is a perspective. Okay. There are a couple things, and I'm going to share with you a couple of tricks that not everybody thinks of.
Yeah.
Unless it is an interceptor, which an interceptor is the square icon fighter.
That you almost never see, basically.
Yeah, you see them very rarely. The circular icon fighters are standard fighters. If you throw an ASW through those, if you've got ASW planes and you throw them through that fighter, the fighters will latch on ASW and take out the ASW. You've lost nothing besides an ASW strike, and the fighter's gone.
Yeah.
So that's one.
That's interesting. I've never even thought about that, but you can consume those fighters.
It doesn't work with airstrike. So sorry, Dutch and a couple others. It doesn't work with airstrike. It has to be ASW. So that's one trick. Here's the other thing: is yes, they can spot anywhere, and it is annoying as sin. Fighters are very flimsy, so if you're within their AA range, kill them quickly. With exception of Bairn, they're the only ones that are not flimsy. But they cannot be everywhere at once. That's the other thing to remember. That's flanks getting spotted, but if your flank's getting spotted, if you can keep them busy long enough that the other flank might be able to do something, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
For your other flank, but it is still a pain.
I'm going to complain a little here, and I think I'm allowed
to.
But yeah, okay, fine. Great, I'm being spotted. I'll be the sacrificial lamb and let my other guys go get all the XP.
Yeah, nobody wants to do that.
Nobody wants to do that. That sucks. And I'm not trying to be sassy, but like on the one hand,
you're right.
You're not wrong. That is a way to help you win the game, and if winning is what matters, if you want to get that W, right? If you want to get that W, you've got to do that. The thing is, of course, is that to go back to the thing Jetty's been talking about, that feels bad, man, and not just Jetty, others as well. And that no, sucks,
you're right,
but you're not wrong about it giving you the win. And if you get the win, you get the XP, but it feels like a loss. And
I know it's a pain. It's a pain.
It's really sad when that is the way to win it. And I've done those games. I've been chased by that submarine. I've been harassed by that carrier. I've fought that losing flank. So I'm going to gripe a little bit in proxy for chat because, gosh, that's a real, you're not wrong though about that being a way to enable your team to win, but then you're relying on other people, Yeah. Well, Dodging CV is playing. It just might not be fun, Jetty. I'll have to fight you on that one just a little, but I know what you mean. You want this to be an enjoyable experience. You want to feel like you're engaged in a battle rather than being engaged in harassment.
Oh yeah, nobody wants to get dunked.
Unfun. Yeah, that's unfun.
Yeah, nobody wants to get dunked. But I'm again looking at it from the perspective of how is it working in the current meta.
Yeah. Can I want to go back and grab another comment from Jetty too, just because I think it's sort of relevant to where we're at, and even if it's not, I thought it was an interesting one. He said, I'm not really a fan of shooting down planes not mattering, considering how long we've been told that that's a surrogate for not being able to shoot at the CV hull. I think this is a insightful comment. He says, but I think that is where we're going, and I think you're referring, Jetty, to the upcoming changes. And I kind of agree. I like shooting down planes, and I like feeling like that does something to the CV player because they're doing something to my ship, to my player, to my avatar in the game. And I do think that it's possible that where we're going is a world where you don't shoot down as many planes, but it's hard to say until we see what comes out of the test and what we see in the future. So, we're going to hold our judgment on that. But I do feel like it seems like we're going to a place where you won't shoot down as many airplanes, but you will have hopefully a better or maybe a different experience in interacting with CVs overall. And the question is, can we make that that adjustment of our reality mentally? Can we get to a place where we go, well, this is not what I wanted it to be when it was different. I wanted it to be like this or like that or like whatever, but now it's better. Am I okay with it being better this way, or am I still wishing it was the other way? And only time will tell. It's really going to be tough to say. The tactical squads are another aspect of that too. You're right, Jetty. So
tactical squads are. I'm kind of pro and con on tactical squads. It's the idea of tactical squads. Basically, as a CV, I'm going, cool. I've got something that I don't need to worry about running out of, because I'm going to get the exact same number of planes every time I launch these. That as a CV makes me go, yay. But the frustration for it on the surface side is annoying, and things like fighters don't work on tactical squads. They don't work on the Russians, and it is annoying.
Yeah.
But part of that is, I still think spotting.
Fighters don't work anyway.
Key.
Remember, it's the worst consumable in the game. No, go ahead.
So that's one of those things where the tactical squadrons I see as a pro and a con. Now, the one thing I will say about the tactical squadrons that are they either have a really long reload time or they don't hit hard.
Yeah.
It's one or the other. Or their dispersion sucks and you might get lucky. The Yorktown's dispersion, for instance, on the bombers is horrid. I have had the reticle lined up directly on a cruiser. Cruiser did not turn and it went all the way around. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
It's and when it does hit, I'm like, yay! I got 4 bombs and I did 4K.
Right. One thing I was thinking about with tactical squadrons recently too is, like, if I put my developer hat on for a minute, what we have with CVs is this interesting power curve that occurs throughout the battle. Early in the battle, there's a lot of AA in the room, and you've got a lot of airplanes, and you can chuck your planes into dangerous places, but obviously the more wisely you're able to use them early in the game when there's a lot of AA. As that AA degrades, not only from HE hits, just scraping those AA mounts off of the ships, but also from ships getting sunk, meaning there's less points of danger out there, less bubbles of death. If you still have planes later in the battle, your power increases, right? Or I should go this way.
Yes.
Mirror view. So your power increases. And so, like, efficiently managing those planes really matters. As a developer, and again, I'm not a game developer, but I think about data sometimes. If you've got tactical squadrons that don't get degraded and they have a standard cooldown and all of that stuff, your power output and your capability to strike things, it does increase because the AA gets worse throughout the game, but your squadrons kind of remain the same, which I don't know if that makes it easier or more difficult to balance. That's probably a question for wargaming, not for me.
Yeah, and that's one I don't have an answer to. Because when we came up with all this data, that was before this line got launched. And the only thing that was really out was the Super CVs and the Hornet. Hornet's dispersion is, if it hits on a DD, is nasty. But I more often than not have gotten like 1 bomb out of that entire cluster on a DD. Whereas it's a waste of time in a lot of cases. So if I take that same squadron and hit a North Carolina, I've gotten 10, 20K hits off of it. So versus I slightly miffed up the DD. And Decker, I agree with you. I think that is one thing that I've always been confused about, but I can't fix that part.
Yeah, that is odd. I don't know. I feel like they found that that's a good way to give them like a 3% match survivability buff, and they were just like, this is easy in the code, but I have no idea why they did that. It's so weird.
that makes no sense. It's the most flammable thing on the battlefield according to historic. But what do I know?
Again, arcade game, not history game, but
right.
I'm with you.
So, but that's again one of those things where people should be able to interact with them. Foaming, you are one of the people I've noticed that are a little bit more aware of the minimap and see planes and whatnot. And
he's like, I'm passingly familiar with the minimap. I've seen it over there sometimes.
But he pays attention to it, though. That's one of the cool things.
Yeah, for sure.
The better people are at that, and the better they're aware of when the planes are coming in, the better they can deal with them. So,
yeah.
I'm trying to balance CVs against surface ships. And to that point, Foaming, I agree to a point with that, but it's also the only ship that is capped at one requiring another CV. Even when Matchmaker does stupid stuff, you will never have a game with a CV and no CV on the other team. So that's 1. 2, they are capped at how many you can have in a match. Yeah. It's the only class that has that cap because of that influence.
Jetty, not to ask you to cite your sources or whatever, but do you remember where you saw that either written or heard it stated? And I want to go to your second comment while you're answering that one. But yeah, I agree. Players will definitely feel frustration in imbalanced game design. And if we kind of know that that's a thing, that helps us understand that that's a challenge. And that everybody has the opportunity to play as that slightly more powerful class. You might not like it, of course, and I understand that. Everybody, like what was Scottish comment earlier, battleships should always do 50,000 damage per salvo. They should never get over pens, and cruisers should always cower in fear, that kind of a thing. Right. Everybody wants whatever their class is to be the strongest one. I want destroyers or DDs, destroyers, to be the most powerful class because that's what I do all the time, and I do want that, but I understand, of course, that all the things that make my life tough as a destroyer are real and they're out there. And so, yeah, understanding those power imbalances definitely would help players accept that a little better. I think it would just make it would arm some players with sassy quips and comments, and that's okay too. But like, we're gonna get those quips and comments even if we don't make that stuff clear and describe the design of the game.
I agree.
Yeah. Okay, I think we have a couple more pictures here. Sure. Did you want to take a minute? Let's take a minute actually and talk about the skill set gap between CV players. This is on the parking lot over here. It's on my notes.
So
yeah, let's talk about that a little bit.
So the skill set gap, part of why I wanted to bring that one up, and we actually kind of already hit on this, was the RTS stuff. The RTS stuff, it really made a difference. Not as much now. I've run across matches where I've been up against CVs that are nowhere near as high rated as I am, and I basically trounce that CV, or he's making a bunch of stupid strikes, etc., and we've got the better CV, but my surface team just melts.
Yeah.
For whatever reason. It is not as much of a factor now as it used to be by any stretch. I don't have any hard data on that.
That's okay. I mean, we can just talk about it kind of as an experience, because I do the same thing too. Like when I load into a battle, I'm a CV of some mediumness, and when I pop into a battle, there's one player on the other team that I want to know what their skill level is. Am I going to get outfighted? Is my team going to tell me that our CV sucks compared to the other guy? Like, am I going to hear that comment, which is unkind? Come on, guys. No, but like, I mean, I always look at the enemy CV and I go, okay, do I have a chance to compete with the other person? Even though there's really not a duel going on. There's not really a duel between the CVs other than dropping fighters in inconvenient locations. The CVs aren't often fighting each other unless you're going to like sneak around with a Colossus or a Malta and try to counter-strike the enemy CV or something, which is always a waste of time. And you tend to see that activity done by players who are less familiar with carrier play. I'm not saying that it hasn't ever happened by high skill players. It does, right? But
I've never sniped another CV because it made the most sense.
Well, if it makes the most sense, that's different. Some people like to do it because that's the whole game to them, right?
Yeah,
that's a different thing.
When I snipe a CV, it's one of those things of, I'll do it for one of two reasons. One, I know that player is good and I want him off the board. Two, I'm looking at everything else going, okay, I'm in a tier 8 and I'm going, Wooster, I'm looking at all this AA and the one thing I could actually strike and get away with is the tier 8 CV, and I'm like, well, let's just remove that off the map.
We kind of have to do this now. Yeah. For real, I think there are logical times to do that. Obviously, there's nobody who's immune from getting damaged by a CV. Like we said earlier, they have unlimited range, and if they're willing to commit the minutes, the seconds to flying that range, they can strike anything. And so there are times when it does make sense to attack a CV. Certainly, as a non-CV player, like if you have the choice between shooting a destroyer and a CV, sometimes that can be a tough call, but usually you're going to pick the CV, right?
It
Destroyer's
depends. I mean,
probably next, but
if I'm in a British CV, no, I'll take the destroyer.
oh, I mean, if you're in a battleship and you see both, right?
Oh.
Or if you're in a
yeah.
cruiser and you see both, right? In a destroyer, I'm probably going to fight the destroyer. In a cruiser, I might fight the destroyer. In anything else, in a heavier cruiser or a battleship, I'll probably shoot the CV. And people are going to have different things, of course, different decisions that they make in that same scenario. But the gap in that skill between CV players, that is something I always look at when I'm playing CVs, is I want to know, am I better than the enemy CV or are they better than me? And if they're, and I don't know what I do with that information. In that situation, do you look at those metrics when you're playing live? Do you use a monitor? And if so, do you
Thank you for clearing foaming.
Perform different? Or what's your decision-making matrix?
No, I usually don't, unless I recognize the name.
Okay.
So, there have been matches where I saw a sconce across the map from me, and I'm like, oh, this is gonna be fun.
Yeah.
Now I didn't try to delete a sconce, but this will kind of go to Snow Mongoose's comment about even CVs don't have good counterplay. We do, but the question, we have counterplay options to CVs. First of all, they're going to lose a lot of planes striking us. Second of all, if I sit still and don't do anything, it makes it much easier for them to kill me. I do have the ability to use fighters.
Well,
there's a lot of things I can do. It's not perfect, but I can.
I think that's a little bit different from what Snow is saying, and Snow may have a follow-up here, but
if I misread it, by all means, please correct me.
Well, there's two factors. I think you covered half of it. Half of that's like if they just decide to attack you, you can do things to make that more difficult, and or your AA is already really good. You can launch your thing and drop fighters immediately. You can do some stuff like that. But I think what I think Snow was talking about, and Snow, you can let us know if I'm wrong here, is the ability to counterplay a CV in support of people that are not you. So like your allied ships. Dropping fighters is about all you have. Spotting the enemy CV so that they take damage is another thing you can do, right? If you can get close and spot them. And now with support CVs, we're getting smoke, which is really exciting.
Now, to be fair, from that avenue, Snow Mongoose is correct. Because I can't tell you how many matches I've been in, and I'm on, say the C side of the flank. Build CV shutdown. Okay, so that's exactly what you were just talking about, is what Snow Mongoose just said. So there's been times where I'm on C side of the map, and I've got somebody on A side. Regardless of where my hole is, my planes are on C side. Somebody's on A side going, I need fighter protection, and I can't teleport to where he's going to be. There's no way I'm going to get there in time, and that's something that is a limitation of the current build in CVs. Trying to guess where they're going to hit next. I mean, I can fly over there, drop a fighter, and that just simply means that the CV's likely not going to be hitting that target. They're going to go to something else, and you're like, great. So I just wasted a consumable. Awesome, and probably the time to fly over there to do it.
And that keeps you safe for 60 seconds or something, right?
But
so
not
it's
fast enough to save you, Mongoose. That's the thing. I can't do it fast enough to save you. And that's
I like the response from Snow, but I get that. Like, I can't get there in time. Usually people are asking for help because they're about to die right now.
Right.
And it's like, I want to save you, but now I'm just aware of your blood-curdling scream. I can't get there. Yeah. Boy, that's always rough for both players.
What I can tell you is I did want to go into this a little bit, talking a little bit about AA in general. Overlapping AA is one of the best things you can do against the CV. Likewise, knowing how each CV strikes, for instance, the Russians require a long lead in for them to be able to effectively strike, or you're wiping out most of their planes. So in other words, you can get right up against an island, which means they have to fly around the island to try and strike you, wasting their time.
A lot of the Soviet ordnance has to strike from the side. They have skip bombs, they have rockets, they have torpedoes, right? Except for, I think, the premium one, the tier 8.
Choklov,
Choklov. So they can't strike you in parallel. They can't fly in parallel to the direction you're sailing and drop on top of you because they don't have that kind of ordnance. So those planes, they have to maneuver that. So if you know what their ordnance is, if you have that knowledge, you can do some things that that make them waste time. And CV players hate wasting time. That's why they don't wait around for your fighters to go away before they strike you. They go find another target if you deploy the most worthless consumable in the game. Right? They'll just leave and go hit something else, right?
But interlocking AA, I can't tell you how many times I've watched people literally go away from their team, and then they start hitting that, requesting AA support button, and it's like, you were right next to a worster. Where are you going? Yeah. I can't fix stupid. You
can't fix a foolish mistake, right? We wouldn't call anybody stupid now. We would never do that. Not even in the privacy.
I work IT, and sometimes we get a little salty dealing with end users.
You're telling me there's a PEBCAC or an ID10T problem here?
Yeah, PEBCAC. For those of you who don't know what PEBCAC is, problem exists between keyboard and chair.
Yeah, PEBCAC. And then what's ID10T is idiot. If you spell that out. Yeah. It's listen, you can make mistakes. You can put your ship in a bad place. If you want to see examples of that, come watch my stream. I'll show you.
Oh, we've all done it. We've all done it. But to sit there and complain to the CV that you want AA fighter support when you just left the AA ship next to you. It's like, guys, what do you now problem in chair, not in computer. Yep, pretty much.
That becomes picnic, which I find adorable.
I like that one.
I've not heard that one before. I like that.
It's a problem with the biological interface unit. So.
Okay. CVs do too much damage.
Yeah.
I've heard this before.
I've heard it. So CVs do on average a little bit more damage than battleships.
Yeah.
Do they do too much damage? So
what I've got on this.
Oh, cool. You got that chart up.
So
awesome.
What I got on the chart now. No, I think that was a good lead in, right? I threw that at you while I was swapping screens here. This is how much damage we received as players if we were not the CV, right? So this is CV, other people playing CVs striking us. This is just dodge, right? And what we can see in this example, 116 games. So is this definitive data, big data science stuff? No, it's not. Hang on, Jetty says he's got to head out. Wish you luck in your purpose of teaching people how to manage the reality that includes CVs. Thanks, Jetty. We'll try. Again, at the end of the day, hopefully this just gets people thinking. We're not trying to change anybody's mind.
I'm not trying to win people over on CVs are the greatest thing since sliced bread, but I'm trying to give people resources. But yeah, thank you, Jetty. It's good to see you, my friend. Be well.
And so what we're seeing here is about 116 games, I guess. 65 games played by Cypher, who again understands CVs, knows all of their ordnance, is either blue or purple on all of the CVs. And then you've got
playing surface ships, Mongoose. We were all playing surface ships in these matches, and these are the ones that had CVs in them.
Yeah, I don't think we have that data broken out, Mongoose. So I don't actually know. That's a gret question, though. CV v CV violence, and so this is damage only taken from CVs when playing not CVs, basically. And so what you can see here is that Cypher, you're able to avoid incoming damage better than people who don't play CVs as much as you. And we're not only saying that the damage per game is about that much, and then the damage per attack is about this is the second column there. So there's a lot of tier 6 games in here. There's tier 8 games in here, and there were probably a couple of tier 10 games in here. So those numbers would probably scale up a little bit for tier 10s. So if you're looking at this going, that doesn't seem like that much damage, you're right. Number one, it's not that much damage. And number two, it would be a little bit worse if you were playing all tier 10s, which some of you are tier 10 mains. That's all you do. That's cool too. And so what we're seeing here is that a CV on average, this is not in every game, but on average, I'm going to take about 3,000 damage in a tier 6, 7, 8, 9 game, right? That doesn't mean that in some game you won't have everyone in chat right now who's listening to me has some horrible memory about being harassed and murdered by a CV from full health to not full health very quickly or over a number of consecutive
of consecutive strikes, right? So those games you would take a lot more damage than 3,000. Obviously, there are going to be some games where you just never get touched. And this is only from battles that included CVs. This does not include games where you took 0 damage because there were no CVs. Snow says rough breakdown of what classes of ships. I don't have that data in front of me right now, Snow. But it's going to be all of the classes.
Everything but subs. Destroyers, battleships, cruisers.
Yeah. And I don't know if this is like. Sorry, go ahead.
This is we removed the data from the matches that did not contain CVs. This is just the matches that were played that contained CVs.
Right.
So we weren't padding the number by lowering the averages because, oh, look, there was no CV. I didn't take any damage from the CV. No, that's not padded that way at all.
Right. And I can't tell you if this is like 10 destroyer matches and the rest are battleship matches, which means you were easier to hit, or if it's like, I think it was a pretty good mix. And we have the sheets. We could go look
pretty quick.
Yeah, if you've got it and you want to dig in, that'd be cool. So, but it's basically a large breadth of ships.
18.
And then you're looking at the damage taken per attack while you're digging into that.
Probably about a third of each. Rough estimate is about a third of each.
Okay, so it's pretty evenly distributed, in other words.
Yeah.
That's better than I thought.
And this is across Trust, Anyone, Big GD3, you, Clyde, Attempted Dodge, and myself.
Yeah.
So.
Hey, Alan, welcome. We got a shout out for Alan, guys. Go follow Alan. He plays World of Warships. He's fun.
Hey, Alan.
Yeah, so anyway, and then the other thing, I want to look at that last column, like damage taken per attack. This is the just dodge thing. So you're taking about 900 damage less than, I'm going to assume that I'm all the CV, non-CV mains, right? I'll just take all the blame and all the glory. But as you said, it was Big GD3, it was Attempted Dodge, it was all these other players. So on the non-CV mains, I'm taking about 900 more damage per strike than you are. So
Hang on just a second.
Yeah, go ahead.
Target preference could also vary based off the CV. Some have more options for hitting DDs than others. Yes.
Without question. Yes, Azure Fire is right.
Yeah, they can absolutely have some variation. And I actually wasn't really playing too many heavy AA boats during this. I was actually playing mostly premiums that I was trying to clear snowflakes off of during this time frame. And I had absolutely no commander skills other than a generic, like the 6-point commander I was shuffling around, and no upgrades on any of them.
Yeah, I want to grab SFNL's comments here. He's got 2 of them, and I think they're really relevant. He says the first one is basically, SFNL, I'm going to paraphrase, but he's going to say basically, yeah, but some of these CVs I'm afraid of, and some of them I'm not. So to homogenize all of them like this is overgeneralization. I agree. Again, this is not going to be definitive data here, and you're right, some of those CVs, certainly some of those CVs piloted by certain players, although that's not part of your comment, but some CVs are much more violent against the class that I'm in, and so that's going to be very different. And then SFNL's second comment, which I think is also a valid one, and I want to make sure that's out there for folks who are just kind of watching the show, not really reading, is the reality is there's so many broken ships for players who can clear the skill floor. And that is true of CVs. It's true of not CVs. We were just talking about John the Ruthless's game recently, right? Colbert, not a boat that most people can be good in, and not a boat that anybody can be that good in, it seems like, right? And so, and that's true in CVs, right? We've got some very capable CVs. Baron at tier 6 is just a destroyer deleter. And it doesn't really matter about damage when you're killing something that has 8,000 hit points. It matters that you remove that piece from the board. So one of the things Jetty was talking about earlier was, damage is not the best way to kind of paint all of these pictures. And we agree. Again, we've got a few things. Damage is easy to calculate, so we threw it up on the screen here. The other thing is, what other CVs do you think are super overpowered or more powerful? Maybe is a better way to say that. Cypher.
Depending on the class, like
I was going to name some more, but I'm going to throw it to you. You're the guy.
Colossus against especially lighter cruisers is evil.
Sinister.
Yeah. Immelman can see with her skip bombs can siege even things like minnows and take maybe two or three plane loss on an entire strike. It's pretty disturbing. I would say Indomitable. She doesn't do a lot of damage, but the fact that she could just like plug you away, it's death by 1,000 paper cuts.
I mean, everyone likes to complain about
the FDR
or Shiklov too, or if you want to talk FDR.
FDR is absolutely brutal against battleships. But if you don't have a lot of battleships in that match, the FDR is going to be like, well, damn. Yeah, same thing with German battleships against destroyers. Good luck.
Yeah, FDR is not as scary as she used to be. That's for sure.
Yeah,
she was really scary at first, like a lot of new ships are. But she did get some nerfs that make her a little bit more manageable, and we just don't see her very often.
Well, and here's the other thing that I will talk about, and I'm not trying to call out anybody in particular here. And we all have we've all had an experience where we've gotten a clap by whatever, but FDR in particular, I'm going to switch screens. Pop this up for me, will you?
Yeah, sure. Let me go to the Cypher page here.
That should have transitioned. Why is that not transitioning?
Hang on, let me come back.
Oh, there we go. Okay. It was being grumpy.
Okay, we got you back.
Okay. So, no, it wasn't frozen. It was yeah,
it's
I missed a pop-up message asking me if I wanted to allow it to view the source.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So I want to show you guys something just for the fun of it real quick. Okay, and I don't want to go down too many rabbit holes, but FDR can hit like a truck with her torpedoes. She fires 8 of them, but when you look at her torpedoes, they do 42-33 max damage. That's assuming you're not hitting a torpedo belt, right? Here's the catch. And I'm going to get into why this is relevant here in just a second. I've got her up here. Ranger does more per torp at a tier 6.
Yeah, but you drop like 1,000 torpedoes. What's the speed difference on those? Yeah, I thought it was 1,000. My bad.
So you drop 8 of them, and the damage is, when you're doing less than a tier 6 at tier 10. Now, here's the catch. Here's why I'm bringing this up.
Sure.
Most of the time, when I get FDR hits or something big like an FDR hit, that's another story that I'll get into in a bit, Leviathan.
Yeah, that's true.
But part of the reason why I get those hits is because the player does nothing
to avoid your incoming damage.
Correct. They literally oh damn, CV. They might slow down, they might try to turn a little bit, but by the time they start maneuvering, it's too late because they haven't been paying attention to where I'm at.
Well, and sometimes
they aren't paying attention to the minimap.
Sometimes as a surface player too, you get pinned between, do I want to take an airstrike or do I want to take torpedoes or a citadel, right? And talk about Sophie's choice. Yeah, go ahead.
Although that's a cross shot thing that exists even if the CV wasn't there. Although the CVs admittedly are the best at creating those cross shots.
They do add another vector. Yeah.
The vast majority of the time that I see stuff like that happen is literally, you can switch it back if you want.
Yeah. Sure.
Is literally because the player does absolutely nothing. So if I'm only hitting you with 2 of those torps at tier 10, it's nowhere near as evil as driving straight and eating all 8.
Yeah.
So that's something that people, where we get into the CVs do too much damage thing here. Do me a favor, throw up the adjoining slide on this one.
Which one?
The amount of ordnance dodged.
I think that's this one. Here we go. That should pop up on your side here very shortly. There it is.
If they do nothing to dodge me SNL, that's a guaranteed hit. If they wait too long, I'm probably still going to get a decent hit. It's when people are paying attention, it's easier for them to dodge ordnance.
I like SNL's like, I do agree, doing nothing is an issue. That's for sure. Yeah. Yeah, and I think I think it's difficult when you're in scope, when you're doing all the things. Like, this is one of the things that does cause frustration for players when they're faced with CVs, specifically if it's a tier 8 battle or a tier 6 battle with multiple CVs. You're in scope, you're very busy, and now some joker from way over there is coming to strike you.
And
Mhm.
but like what you've got to do is it's another level of awareness, right? Like we said, the reality is they're here,
And
and
that's
you've
the
got to have that
hardest
level
part
of
about dealing
awareness.
with
It
CVs.
really, really is.
It really is, because if you're aware of where the CV is and paying attention to that minimap, yeah, exactly, Mal. Same problem with subs. If you are aware
Yes.
of where it is likely at and where those planes are coming, the good news is you can see the planes coming. The bad news is if you're not paying attention to those planes, I basically walk away with 3 damage. If you the players who pay attention to it, if you look at this this in particular chart, so out of all the rockets thrown at me, and it was some hellacious number, I forgot what it was, I dodged over 87% of them. The torpedoes, I dodged almost 90%. Bombs, I dodged 86%. People who were not paying as much attention were not dodging them as well.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
look, I love the torpedoes in particular is the biggest gap that we're looking at here, right?
Yeah.
And torps,
Yeah.
you know, you dodge torpedoes the same way you dodge torpedoes that come from destroyers, and you can see these ones coming because they're in the air, and you may never have seen the destroyer, right? So you slow down, you turn into them, or maybe you have to turn away. Kind of depends on the aircraft's approach, right? But like,
Yeah.
that's kind of crazy, like the amount more dodged, because all you're doing is sitting there thinking about CVs coming to get you
Yes.
in the mini, you know, whereas the rest of us are thinking about the other stuff we're doing just because of our perspective, our approach to the game. Does this mean that carriers are easy to dodge and everything? No.
No.
But it does mean you can get better at it. That isn't to say everyone go out there and get good, you jokers, because I know how hard it is to be on the front line and getting smoked by, I'm thinking about destroyers right now, getting smoked by radar cruisers, fighting another DD, having to manage your smoke. Maybe you got a whole repair that you already used and you're on fire and you're sad about that.
Mhm.
You know your detection range is like 2 kilometers higher, and here comes the CV, right? Like you don't need another thing to worry about, and it's very stressful playing those frontline classes
Yes.
like that. SFNL talked about being a big stationary tanky ship that's designed to lock onto an island and hold this cap while punching bad guys in the face and just live. And now you got a guy who's designed, you know, all the new Russian CVs love hitting targets like that, provided they can get out around the outside. And you've got skip bombs that basically you can drop from forever away, I should say, and then they can hit and you barely take any airplane down. Like, we know that there are some challenges here for sure. And one of the ways that Wargaming does attempt to balance that stuff is they adjust ordnance damage, right? So what we were just looking at with FDR, those torps don't do a lot of damage, but you can still get a lot of hits.
makes a good comment right here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Minimizing it. It's all about minimizing how much is there. Now, Dutch, you made a comment about oh, hang on, that scrolled. How much damage did it take from surface ships? It's not. So we could poo-poo it all day and say, well, yeah, you dodged that, but you got hit by that. Well, that's part of the game. You're getting a cross shot.
Well,
the question is,
yeah.
can you negate it? I mean, there's people that can weave through 3 things, a torps coming from different directions, from Ashima and, you know, Holland and whatever else. I've watched them do it. Does it happen every time? No.
Well, and to Dutch's comment too, like
yeah,
I think the dodging percentage of like slow American battleship shells at tier 8, right? Dodging North Carolina shells, you're going to dodge a lot of this for sure, right? And I think Jetty's comment earlier about like Wargaming talking about how like this class is going to behave and perform differently, the way it gets damaged is going to be different. It might feel or behave a little bit more powerfully is a factor there, right? These things are going to be difficult to directly compare and say, see, spreadsheet says we're not having fun. In the same way that we got to say the spreadsheet can't tell you guys if I'm having fun, we can turn around and respond the other way too and talk about how some things are either comparable or not. And everything has a, well, except for this exception, right? Everything's good except for when, you know, and those things are true for sure. But I would love to see a bunch of dodging metrics for non-CV ordnance as well. I don't know that it would be relevant to today's discussion, but it would be super interesting.
I think it would be, but
get into that too.
My main point about this is I can't tell you how many streams I have watched where the player literally does nothing, and they don't even realize they're getting dropped until it's too late.
Oh, I love those players. They're my favorite.
Yeah,
I'm not a good
those
CV
are the ones you're just like,
captain.
oh, thank you for the free Citadel. You know,
Cypher, I need those guys to stay in the game. Stop teaching them. I need them in here.
And this isn't poo-pooing anybody per se, because we've all been caught flat-footed.
Sure.
I've watched the best players go, oh, well, damn.
Yeah.
You know, CVs can force angles of attack that
Yeah.
I won't say no surface ship can, but they could do it better. That is one of their advantages. And it is very frustrating, but being aware of where it is allows you to prep and possibly negate it, or make a choice on how to do it. Likewise, interlocking AA is a big thing. I have watched FDR planes get pummeled because of interlocking AA.
Interlocking AA, you're talking about sailing ships around in groups so that they're sharing AA bubbles, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. I remember when we first switched. I'm gonna be that guy. I remember when we first switched from RTS CVs to the new CVs, and there were CVs everywhere. Like I said earlier in the stream, we went from having 10 or 15% of our matches have a CV in them to having like 50 or 60 or at first it was like 80%. Like everybody was playing CVs because they were like, I want to try the new thing. And I remember I had a friend, I still have a friend who is who's actually helping me with some cool stuff for the Golden Barnacles. I think you guys are gonna be excited about it. I have a friend who used to play World of Warships, but he doesn't anymore because when they switched it from RTS CVs, he was like, I'm out, and he stands it out and doesn't play anymore. But when they were first making the change, he played a lot, and we talked a lot about what to do there. And he said, well, he told me that. He said, well, you got to stay next to those other ships, and then you'll have AA and you'll be safe. I said, I'm a destroyer, man. I'm going to be out there capping points. I don't get to sail by other ships. So basically, I guess I just don't get to play anymore. This sucks. I was really mad about it at the time, right? And everybody, again, it's okay to have those thoughts, those feelings, and to express that frustration. It's really good to provide that as feedback in a good way. But
and not only
I hated that explanation as a surface ship player.
Well, sadly, when they rolled out 0.8.0 and got rid of the RTS CVs, it was bad. It was so bad. Things like the AA wasn't effective. So largely because of slingshotting techniques. So they removed slingshot from the game except for one CV. Only one can still do it. And again, she's death by 1,000 paper cuts. She doesn't really hurt that much.
You're talking Indomitable? Is that the one?
Indomitable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Her bombs have 32 mils of pen at tier 8. You're going to break on a lot. That said, they removed the slingshotting. Then they buffed the AA at the same time, and they buffed it so badly it actually made CVs ineffective. So because they changed both things, and it's like, no, slingshotting was the issue. So they brought the AA back down, not all the way down to where it was ineffective, like it was when they first rolled out the patch, but they did pull it down by like 50% of what they raised it to. And it or something like that. I don't remember the exact numbers, but it gave it a better balanced perspective. The idea of AA, and this is where I mentioned we're going to put a pin in the fighter thing, and we're going to come back to that. Yeah, slingshot was terrifying, especially with an Enterprise. Just saying. It was busted. The rockets were. Everybody stopped trying to feed off of battleships, and they focused destroyers because rockets you were able to pummel them. It was that rocket change needed to happen. So I mean, a lot of CV players are like, oh god, I miss the good old days when I could just slap. No, your primary food as a CV should be battleships. Everything else is kind of secondary in most cases.
I love when people call targets food. It makes me laugh. But unless I'm the food, then I'm angry about it.
Right. So I got derailed. What was I saying? Oh yeah. The way AA is designed to work.
Same.
Do me a favor. Change the screen back. I'm gonna go back into my.
You want to show some stuff?
Yeah, I'm gonna show some stuff.
All right.
Let's say. Actually, no, I'm not gonna do that. We're gonna do. Okay. Nah, I don't want to let's do the curve fist. Okay. So, a lot of people may or may not realize this, and I just want to kind of go over this with you guys here real fast. If you know this, yay. If you don't, hopefully it's helpful. But you have really kind of 3.5 ranges of AA, right? So, the long range AA. So it breaks it down where it's like, your short range AA. This one has 126 damage per second, right?
Yep.
Medium's 326, and then your long range AA is 144. Now, Kerfus AA sucks. We all know this. What happens if you're in long range and you go into medium range? You are now taking long and medium at the same time. If you go into short range, you're taking all three at the same time. So that number stacks. And almost every time they have to get within short range for most plane types in order to hit you. There are exceptions to the rule. Okay. Here's the other thing. When you look at, that's the continuous damage. Okay. And this is, obviously I have no commanders, no nothing on this. This is a bare basic ship, right?
Yep.
The other thing though, damage by shell explosions. This always starts at 3.5 clicks and goes to whatever the max range is. The shell explosions, aka the flak bursts, those pretty black clouds.
Yeah.
Those hurt. I have had an entire flight that had no damage. I come up over an island and I see a wall of flak, and I've lost the entire squadron. I'm like, well, that was a thing.
Are they always 3.5 kilometers? I guess I never really thought about this.
Always.
All tiers,
clicks.
even at tier 5?
All tiers. Flak starts at 3.5 clicks.
Okay.
There is not a single exception to that rule in this game.
Okay. That's new information for me.
Howie, I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Give me a sec. Don't jump ahead.
Keep going.
Stay in your lane. You're kidding. Okay. But the shell explosions hurt, and each explosion can hit more than one plane. Now, here's the way it works when you are receiving AA. If you look at any of the AA squadrons, you will have switch screens, so because I like to talk with my hands sometimes, and it might help with explanations.
Sure.
So you can have a 3x3, okay? And we'll just, sake of argument, we'll say we've got 5 planes total in this squadron. The continuous damage will start on plane 5. Once it exceeds the damage, it is destroyed. It goes down to plane 4, and once it exceeds the damage, it's destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Fighters work the same way. All damage they take starts at the back and works their way forward to plane 1. Plane 1 is the one you would strike with.
Yeah.
Okay? So what you are doing is not necessarily preventing the initial strike, it's preventing their ability to have a follow-on strike.
Yeah.
Okay? That's part of how AA works. The fighter itself, now here's the funny thing, defensive fighters, they launch and they have a 5-second time to get to altitude. So if you're launching it when the plane's on top of you, I'm sorry, it is too late. Thank you for playing. You've just wasted the consumable.
Right. Well, and kind of talking about some of the AA ranges you were just talking about too, that's another thing where you see different ships will have more intense DPS values either on their short range, their mid range, or their long range, right?
Yes.
So those ships that have really...
Or the flak.
Or the flak. And setting the flak aside for a sec, though, we can certainly add it into the equation because I think it's a part of it. I also like to talk with my hands, by the way. If you have a ship that has really bristly AA DPS on those longest of ranges, those ones are really uncomfortable for CVs to strike because they approach and they're like, ooh, this hurts, I don't want it. And so they leave and then they come back in. Obviously, once a CV main or a CV player gets comfortable and understands, I know that ship, I know it's going to hurt at first and it's going to hurt as I attack and everything. Those ships are hard for the CV player to commit to decide to commit to. Whereas the other ones where their intense AA is on the internal bubbles and it's light on the outside, they go, I'm only going to be in that internal bubble for a second. I'm going to take some ships or take some plane damage when I get in there. But
This is why the Russians are so brutal, because the Russians can hit you from longer range. The Immelman and the Baron can hit you from longer range.
Yeah.
Yep. And fighters. Now, here's the catch with fighters. Fighter range is 3.5 clicks. If you're outside of 3.5 clicks, that fighter will not even begin to try and latch.
You're talking about 3.5 clicks from the fighter to the other airplanes that they would latch to?
If I were to launch a fighter, right? And sorry, I'm moving stuff on my screen, and I'm
sure. Let me pop back over there. There you go.
Okay, so if I were to launch this fighter, his action radius, so some of them are 3 clicks. It used to be 3.5, 3 kilometers. Okay, If I'm outside of 3 kilometers, this does nothing. Most strikes have to get closer to that. There are some planes that don't. Tactical squadrons. Now, here's the other. Well, I'm going to get into a little bit more about the tactical squadrons and fighters in a second. That you have to launch it before they are within 3 clicks. It will also take them 2 seconds to latch. Okay.
Okay. I'm listening. Keep going.
Which means if they are latching at 2 seconds, you're probably still going to take that first batch. But then this fighter is going to turn around and start chasing the remainder of the squadron.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Right.
So now that said, fighters don't care about ordnance that's already dropped.
Yeah.
Okay. I switched back to screen. There you go.
I'm keeping up with you.
So they will only go after the stuff that still is a danger. So if it's still
so
bad
you're saying
ordnance,
that
it's
if
going
my
after it.
planes have dropped their ordnance, the fighters don't consider them a threat. They don't care.
Correct. Ergo, tactical squadrons and Russians are almost fighters are almost useless against them.
Yeah. Okay.
So, however, here's the good news for all tactical squadrons except for one. They are very, very flimsy.
Is the one the Hornet B-25?
The one is the
Yeah.
B-25s.
Just gonna say, I didn't want to keep that a secret in case chat was learning from. I was like, hey, let's talk B-25. I figured you would share, but
yeah, they are very flimsy except for the B-25s. The good news on the B-25s though is they're stupid slow.
They are very slow.
Use
This is a
your
true
PC as a space heater. Nice.
In the wintertime, it helps. Yeah.
Right. So if you use your AA to try and prevent an incoming strike, and then you turn around and have a fighter to further prevent the follow-on strike, you're going to whittle it down. If you use dodging techniques to try and mitigate most of the damage of that first shot thrown at you, you are going to mitigate a huge chunk of what that CV is going to be able to do to you. And now they have to fly the minute and a half back to you, or however long it takes them to get to you again, and you've just wasted their time.
I think
and in a 20-minute match.
Yeah. I think that launching that fighter too, like, there's a couple of ways that it can help you, and one of them is very difficult to measure, and I still think the fighters are weak consumable, and I'll probably take that one to my grave unless they change it. But you can launch that, and there's maybe the fighter latches on and does some damage, kills some planes, prevents the follow-on strike that way. Maybe the fighter doesn't do anything, but they go hit somebody else, right? That's not a bad thing either. That means you've avoided 100% of the damage. You've gotten no XP from it, but you put up a fighter, and now that guy's going to go hit somebody else. Now, somebody else is also on your team. You don't want them to take damage either, but one of the things that we think about a lot in this game, and this is maybe a bad attitude to have, but I can trust me. I know what I'm going to do. So I know 100% of the time I'm going to be a big help to my team, right? So I want that damage to go to somebody else. Obviously, that's not always the case, right? I've been, just absolutely obliterated in many, many battles, but that is a way where you can avoid damage with a fighter, but not really be able to detect it or understand it, because you didn't kill any planes, you didn't do anything, but they just made a different choice as the CV that was going to come around for that second attack, and they decided to move on. So I guess that's something to think about.
Even if there are some players who know how to time their heal and could potentially heal through the damage of a fighter, if that's the case, you've just caused me to burn a very
consumable that's valuable,
consumable.
And you would never know it, right? Yeah, that's a good point too.
If you don't shoot down planes, you would probably know it. And that's basically, you've caused me to waste a consumable just to try and keep planes alive, when I probably shouldn't have hit you to begin with. So, and here's the other thing that I see a lot of people not using. Oh my god, I cannot tell you how many times I do not see people using priority sector.
Priority sector is great.
Those numbers that I just gave you guys, priority sector, when you first launch it, if you don't have the skill in it, immediately takes off 3% of the total hit points of the squadron.
By the way, That is important to know because you want to wait until till your AA guns are already firing.
Mm-hmm.
If you hit it early, you don't get 3%. They just fly in and take the boosted damage. Wait to use that until they're in for 2 reasons. Number one, you get that boost of damage, that burst of damage, which is it 5% now, or did it go up to 3% recently? There was a buff recently.
It's 3%, but well,
oh, there's a
okay,
skill.
so it might have changed. There's also a commander skill that can give it an immediate 1.5% extra, and that's off of the total squadron amount.
I think Howie's right. I think it's 3.5 base,
yeah,
and then it becomes
either way
5.
it's free damage for clicking a button.
So you click the button. If you click it early, though, you're doing 2 things. You're giving away the boost of damage, that burst of damage, and any time that it takes them to fly from when you clicked it to into your range, you're not getting the increased damage then either. So you want to wait and use that after your guns are already firing. And people don't think about that because they don't know about that initial burst of damage. People don't know about that. Know about
so I mean that's just right off the top. Even FDR planes, it takes the same it takes that percentage.
Yeah, you'll see like 1100 will pop up on the screen or something. You know, like it's a big number.
Yeah,
so it's worth it.
It's pretty staggering. Now, here's the other thing that a lot of people don't necessarily know. DFAA, if you pop DFAA first, then immediately hit priority sector, DFAA is going to buff your priority sector and make it hit harder.
I knew that. Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, logically, that makes sense.
Right? And basically, depending on the priority sector reinforcement, you're getting taking your base numbers and like 30 to 50% extra reinforcement. So you're basically getting half again as much damage on that side for free. For free. Yeah, and if you've got interlocking AA and people are using it, you're going to melt stuff in a hurry. But people don't use it. Now, here's the other thing.
Subatai has a question there about the 50%. Are you talking about DFAA or are you talking about priority sector?
Doesn't it take 8 seconds before the 50% kicks in? So
you might know right off, Cypher.
Yes, it does. So that's okay. So priority sector has a ramp up time.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But that initial hit is immediate,
and
then it ramps up the extra damage.
Yeah. I think what Sub's saying is there's kind of a timing thing. If you're going to get struck within that 8 seconds, don't you want the 50%? You do, but you also want that initial puff. So there may be times when it's worth optimizing one direction or the other. I don't know. I feel like I like that initial hit a lot, so I want to try to get that every chance I get. But there's probably some math there to be thinking about a little bit. But likely they're not just going to be flying straight at you. They're going to be coming in and planning a turn. And go ahead.
Yeah, 99% of the time, literally, you hit the priority sector as they're coming in. Now, battleships have priority sector that lasts 15 seconds. You can do this a couple of ways. You know you're going to get hit. You wait for them to try and circle around on you, at least until they change the fact that they can't circle around on you anymore. And the second they hit you, you fire priority sector on the opposite side.
Yeah.
So they take that immediate hit, and they're taking short, medium, and long range damage, and then eventually flak for 15 seconds as they try to go basically out and loop around you.
Right.
So those types of things. Likewise, AA still works on planes that have dropped ordnance. So by all means, priority sector the Russians, because you can still catch them as they're escaping.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, and some of these things, I mean, when we look at our toolbox for like swatting airplanes out of the sky, we wish there were more tools in there, but we need to at least know the ones we've got, right? And so, like you say, these are the ones we have, and there are better ways to use them than sometimes we're doing. Some of us might know all this stuff already. If you do, great. Tell others, teach others.
Yeah, please share
help them understand. We don't want this to be a secret,
Yeah, I don't want this to be a secret either. Make me work for it more, please, guys. So I'm actually going to jump into a training battle here real quick, and I'm going to switch my screen. I want to show people something.
Oh my gosh! All right.
I'm not actually going to really be playing much. So as you can see, I'm the only ship in here, so whatever.
Okay.
Right. But one thing that I see a lot of people doing is they go into a match looking like this, right?
Looking at Minimap. You're talking about the rings over here.
So,
yep.
Right, this is what their Minimap looks like. This is my surface detection range. This is my secondaries or whatever other ordnance I've got, right? Here's the catch. If you're worried about being spotted, you need to use this ring. If you're not worried about being spotted like in a battleship, yeah, I can see not using it. But this ring also is subs at periscope. So this works for both subs at periscope and planes. Okay?
Really?
That's one.
The detectability range by air
is the same as...
Is it because it happens to be the same number, or do they need to update that label?
It's the same metric.
I think
they basically said, we'll just use the air detectability range for periscope.
All right, that's interesting to know.
But that'll help you with what helps if I don't click off the damn thing. This will help you with both. Okay, so having this on is huge.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many people do not use this.
I don't know if I use that. I might not.
Now, if I've got a plane flying out here, you might hear an AA gun go off because he dipped in briefly.
Yep.
And if you hit priority sector, you just wasted that buff.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so if you don't turn this ring on and pay attention to when that plane is inside of this ring, then hit priority sector, boom, you get that priority sector, you have the time frame, and now it is up and running now, full up. But the initial hit when I first hit it, is where you get that immediate 3.5% damage. And if they're outside of that ring, you've just wasted it. So, and if he's inside of this ring, this just became useless.
Yeah, I'm super guilty of letting my AA guns tell me when it's time to use the, what I always call it turbo AA, but the def AA or the
so what ships doesn't kick it. It really sucks to experience. Classes don't kick or if a player knows what they're... I'm not sure I understand the question, Iris Griffin. So, but I wanted to show that because...
I think what Iris is saying is, well, sure, you got to get good at every boat, dude. Like, in other words, all ships require you to get skilled. Yeah, that makes sense, Irish. Yeah. There's nothing that you just come into this game and know how to play right away. Everyone is terrible when they first start playing World of Warships, and some people get better faster than others, right? So that's definitely a true thing for sure. I had to read your question a couple of times. I don't think it was the way you worded it. I think it was my loose grasp of English.
Yeah, I was having an English moment.
Anyway, thanks for that comment. That is totally true. And we're just trying to provide some light on some of these things that people might be ignoring.
Yeah, it's a lot of people don't pay attention to that, and I mean, you'll see countless streamers who don't bother turning those things on, and these are usually the same ones who sail straight and they start going Stevie as a bunch of torps are coming in.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, okay, guys, we're gave AA random HP if unlucky.
Okay, I kind of want to jump to some of our later topics. If it sounds like you got a question you wanted to answer, though, go ahead.
I was just reading. Remember, Wargaming gave AA random HP.
Leviathan's comment about the mounts themselves, right? So you might be unlucky and have low hit points on your torp launchers, your AA guns, etc., depending on the randomness there. That is totally true, and you never know how it's going to go. I figure that's so random that there's literally nothing we can do about it. So I'm just not worried about that.
Pretty much. The other thing that I would say is, here's a fun little tidbit, especially when you're playing a destroyer. I want you guys to remember this line. Remember to pee before you get in the pool.
Okay, hold on.
Right.
Okay, make that not weird for me. What are you talking about? What have you done?
P. Shut off your AA.
Ah, right. Yeah.
Pee before you get in the pool.
I knew that had to be that, but I just was... I needed to reconcile what I was hearing.
Yeah, but now you'll remember it.
Yeah, I know that this is totally true. So I play a lot of destroyers myself. Some DDs, the AA range and the spotting by air range is exactly the same. And those ones you don't have to worry about that button if you don't want to. But some of your destroyers,
Sabutai, yeah, there you go.
That's where I'm going.
Exactly.
So some of those destroyers will have a 6 kilometer AA range, but you'll only be spotted by planes at like 2.5 kilometers. And so what you don't want to do is have your guns ready to go and shooting at everything right away, because then you're letting the carrier inadvertently decide that you got spotted. Whereas if you have your AA off, you can see those airplanes flying around, and you can opt into turning that on when you're ready to fight the CV. And so you can avoid entire engagements with CVs as a destroyer or another low concealment class if your AA guns are turned off. Cypher, what else you want to add to that? There's definitely more thoughts there, I'm sure.
So there are some destroyers that have a shorter AA range than their aircraft detection range. If your AA is on, I can still guesstimate where you're at in smoke.
Yes. And as DD players, a lot of times what I'll sometimes do, and I don't know if this is always wise, but what I'll do is a player will, the CV will spot me, even though I had my AA off. They'll come in to attack. I'll do what Big Data just said a minute ago. He says, I use the tilde button to turn off my AA. So if you hit the tilde key, that fires up your priority sector and it turns on your AA immediately. I'll spray down those aircraft as they come in. They'll do their rockets or whatever. Then I turn my AA off again. They have to do a big circle to turn around, and that means they have to find me again, and I have at least 3 seconds of being invisible. Cypher, talk about that from your perspective.
There is a catch to that I want to throw out. That's a small caveat.
Please.
If you have a really good Smallland AA destroyer, your detection range is going to be what's your aerial detection range on the Holland?
It's got to be like 2 or 3. I'll look it up while you're talking here.
Okay, so I can actually look it up too. I've got her. Where is she? Unless chat beats us to it.
I am not getting there. This is taking forever. I'm going so slow.
Solid.
AA range is 6 kilometers. Your detection range is 3 kilometers.
So at 3 kilometers, or 2.7 is what I've got mine at. You are inside a Flak range, and you've taken out the huge chunk of what she's evil at. So you might want to leave it off until you decide to ambush him, but ambush him at a later range. Not wait until he spots you. Because that Flak, again, is inside of 3.5. You have no Flak.
Yeah, my captain wasn't trained. That's why it's 2.7 on. Or 2.7 on yours and 3 kilometers.
Yeah. So if you've got a lot of good AA and you can clap it,
that's okay too.
By all means, wait. Don't wait until you're detected. Use it earlier.
Yeah, that is totally
3.5 is the minimum you need to be able to utilize Flak. So don't wait there like 3.7 and then turn on your AA. You just gave yourself away for early for no reason.
Right.
Kind of an idea.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the thing, to understand those interactions, and you'll learn, we just gave some basic rules of thumb there. Certainly there are going to be certain ships that have exceptions to this, but know about this stuff, go think about it, and then learn how to incorporate that into your play when you're playing specifically destroyers. But for some of the lower detection cruisers, that can be a thing as well, right? Or smoke cruisers, right? If you're in smoke and this guy in a very skilled CV is trying to loop around and strike you with rockets, you can turn off your AA, move your boat a little bit, and that makes it harder for them too. So a lot of these kinds of tactics, you want to be active about whether or not your AA is on. That's not just a thing. There's a reason the P button exists, right?
Yes. So give me just one moment. I'm going to be right back. I'm going to take a brief break. I should be back inside of a minute.
Okay. I guess I'll just entertain our guests. Don't worry about me. What else is going on in chat, everybody? I've lost my expert. Got to use my thumb for something. Hot tub time. Cartwheels. Ooh. I got a green screen thing out here on the floor. We could do some dancing. For those of you guys who've been asking, is this going to be on YouTube? The answer is yes. So we are going to put this over on the YouTube channel as soon as we're done today. I'll probably work on that this afternoon. It'll take a little bit of time to get this trimmed up and put the bumper and footer on there for, Clyde plays and some music or whatever. But we will put this up on YouTube. So either today, tomorrow, this will be going. I don't know exactly, Dutch. Probably I'm going to try to get lunch here within an hour. So that's about how long I'm probably going to go at the most. We do have a couple of really interesting topics to talk about, and so we'll see what's going to happen. This is going to be a long one, though, for the YouTube content, right? When you get to it. Well, thanks, guys. I appreciate that. And yeah, when we do something special like this, we try to put these up
on the YouTubes because they're a good thing to have archived up there. And this is the kind of thing that, you know, there's 100 people watching right now. We got 107 viewers as I say this. And that's great for the 107 of you that are here, but we know that there's more than 100 people who'd be interested in this topic and who would benefit from, you know, being a part of this conversation. Obviously, you guys get the best version of it because you're getting it live, which means you can interact, you can chime in and share your thoughts, you can exchange questions and stuff with us, which is good. But
all right, sorry about that, folks.
Do that. Hey, welcome back, sir. We're just talking a little bit about how we're going to plug this thing up on the YouTube channel. And the other thing I want to point out, guys, I'll remind you, we talked about this at the top of the stream. You've been listening for a while, or maybe you just joined us in a little bit. This is the YouTube link for Angelic Cypher's brand new YouTube channel. He's putting together informative aircraft carrier content, which I think you're going to really get a kick out of. Like I said, I've watched a couple of his videos. He just dropped a new one today about the Ranger, and there are more coming. And so this is an awesome new resource that's about to be on YouTube. I can't recommend enough that you go over there and give him a follow or a subscription, I guess is what it's called on YouTube. Subs over there are free. So swing on over there and jump in with.
I love
Cypher.
this comment right here by Mal. You know, he's been playing this game for 8 years and he's learning stuff.
For real, dude. I learned something.
What I'm
I'm
hoping some people walk away with a little tidbit. And you know, there's a lot more. I'm not even getting into the weeds of this yet. One of the things, not trying to plug my own YouTube channel as anything other than a resource.
Please plug your own YouTube channel. That's what it's for.
When I hit each CV, I've already done the Langley and Ranger, and I'm basically doing them in order released. And so as I'm doing each CV, I'm talking about how they like to attack in for each type of ordnance, what they're most dangerous against, et cetera, et cetera. So it teaches you both how to play that CV to a minor degree, as well as how do you deal with it. So those videos are dual purpose.
Yeah, they're not just for the CV person; they're for the people who want to know about CVs because they're frustrated, right?
Straub's Audacious.
Your favorite CV is Audacious? That's an audacious choice. Really? Okay, hang on. Give me. I was going to go to a new topic, but I need to know. Tell me about this. Tell me why. So, for those of you guys who don't know jack about CVs, Audacious is not considered a very powerful CV. She's not considered a fan favorite, but apparently, Cypher's favorite CV is Audacious. I'm going to switch to your screen. Let's take a look at this. What do you got for us? Oh my gosh, this is ridiculous.
It's my favorite enough that I had a custom skin made for my KGB Terminator.
Made for it.
Even the planes.
What? First of all, I love that. That is
so KGB
great.
Terminator does amazing work, so I'm gonna plug the guy. But yeah, she's my favorite enough that I had to have the skin.
Sorry if that was loud when I was laughing there, guys. That was a very loud ha. I just emitted.
So switching back here. So the reason why she's my favorite is, honestly, the Brit line is probably technically the hardest line, and I like the challenge.
Sure.
I think it's hilarious.
I
and the only way you make the Brits work is if you push, and you have to push hard because of their flight time is horrible. But their planes are beefy, and I love it. So you don't necessarily get all the damage, but if you're good enough, you can get the wins. And yeah, you see, Big Data, I would disagree because Citadels are easy to get if you line them up right, but you have to understand bomb penetration mechanics for HE and who has what kind of deck and what your drop times are. Likewise, your torps and how to mitigate them, how to use that cone effectively. There's a lot more to the Brits in my opinion. So but if you look at the overall PR data on them, the Brits are the lowest ranked nation.
Yeah, the general consensus is the British CVs are the worst. They're terrible. Nobody should even play them. I actually like the Furious, but I do struggle to win in it. I'm doing okay with the tier 8. I can't remember if it's not Indomitable. What's the 8 called?
Thank you, Mal. There's the Implacables, the tier 8.
Implacable, that's right.
Anyway, but I'm doing okay there. But I don't dislike them. I like the carpet bombs for hitting DDs. I like the quick aiming of the torpedoes. But I do struggle in them. So I think they are tough to play. I don't know if they're worse than or I should say more difficult than the Germans. Dutchman has a comment in here, says, I had no idea that bespoke skins were even possible. You briefly mentioned the name of the person who made that custom camo for you. Can you plug them real quick and provide information where people can find them in chat?
He might still be in chat. That's his name right there.
Okay.
You can, if Bowmaster or somebody, if you could shout him out, you can contact him via Twitch. He will respond. He does custom skins. His prices are reasonable. His artistry is good. So
amazing. Okay, cool. Well, just in case anybody, I don't know if KGB is still here, but if you are, hello, we see you, and now we know about a wonderful service you provide. I have not had a custom skin made, so I can't speak to that. It sounds like Cypher's had good exchange with KGB Terminator here. So reach out to KGB if that's something you're interested in, and learn about what's possible there. So I don't know that that's something that most players will do, but if anybody wants to, now you've got a POC, you've got a person, or a point of contact, I should say, that can help you with that. Thanks, Cypher. Okay,
no problem.
I want to try to do lunch here within an hour, is what I was telling people while you were gone. So we've got some things, we still have some stuff on our outline. We wanted to talk about spotting. So we talked about spotting before. Now, spotting is a long topic, but let's hit some high points. When we have a CV in a game, everyone likes to complain about spotting. Well, both teams do get a benefit from the spotting that exists in the game. And we talked a lot about spotting already with the AA on and off. So I thought this would be kind of a nice segue. So what do you got in terms of how can we deal with CV spotting as CVs and as non-CVs, maybe?
There's a couple of tricks. First of all, I would tell you to be cautious of this one because you have to understand the CV that you're going against and the way their ordnance works. But you can use islands to hide you, because if you're behind an island, I can't see you unless I've got enough altitude to look over it. That's one way. Obviously, turning off your AA if your AA is wider than your aerial detection range, shutting that off makes it a lot harder for me to find you. Subs, you press a button and I don't see you. Now, spotting is the most OP thing. Yeah, smoke, but don't shoot in the smoke. I have actually several clips where I had a Haragumo trying to farm me, and I went, oh, really? Saw where he was shooting. He wasn't even moving, and I just went clap, and I hit him with 4 bombs on the Lexington. Needless to say, he was not having a good day.
That's a skill that good CV captains have. You are not impervious to being smoke bombed or smoke shot or smoke torqued or whatever.
Yep. The people who just sit and smoke and then get mad when they get hit. Sorry, I got nothing for you. But some of the other things you can do is, it's not so much a spotting thing, but trying to keep the CV away from you. If you stay clustered, and I know there's a cluster, I'm going to go find easier stuff to hit than try and come in on the cluster. So I'll just avoid that section altogether. Now, here's the other thing about spotting, though. Yes, it sucks to get spotted. Yes, CVs can spot anywhere, but they cannot spot everywhere at once.
Yeah. And
so there's a piece of that. The other half, or another portion of that, is they are spotting for you as well. Take advantage of it.
Yeah.
Now, that said, this is one of those things of, unfortunately, I don't have a lot of good answers because spotting in the game is currently not the way Wargaming intended it. They had no idea it was going to be this bad. And unfortunately, when they started trying to address it, that's when, well, hey, look, Ukraine.
Right.
And that threw a lot of things out the window.
We also talk about, like CVs don't want to sit there and loiter and spot stuff for you. They're not. No. A lot of times CVs are not, or I should say most of the time, CVs are not trying to spot things for you. I, as a CV main, when I want one side to collapse so I can sail my ship over there so we can flank you guys, I will waste some time, and I'm saying waste, but like spotting like a destroyer or something. I'll invest some time spotting a destroyer or something so that we just pummel that guy, and then that side's clear and I can push up. That's selfish. That's for me, because I want to get up over in that space. And again, I'm not the CV player that Cypher is, but but I'll do that to make sure that side collapses. But most of the time I want to be attacking things. I want to be sinking stuff. And I'm getting some nodding from you, but yeah, go ahead. What do you think about?
No, I completely agree. I don't usually loiter over stuff. Now, if there's a target that, like, I've had Shimas who are very good at turning off their AA at the right moment, so I'm now outside of their AA range and I lose them. So by the time I loop back around, they've moved and I can't hit them when I finally do spot them. They're very good at playing this game. So what I've done just to deal with them is basically I'll hit F3, 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 and I'm parked on top of him, trying to basically get my team to delete him.
And usually if it's a platform like a submarine or a destroyer, your team's motivated to do that. That's some of the best spotting you can do, which means that when I'm a destroyer, I'm pissed off when that happens to me. But the other thing about CV spotting is, like I said, most of the time, they're not trying to spot things for you. What they are trying to do is get somewhere. And so there's all this incidental spotting that happens on accident, and that causes a bunch of things.
And that's what they're trying to fix.
That's the piece that they're trying to address. Yeah.
We have zero details. The only things they've said is
information.
Right. It's basically high level. Basically, if I want to go from point A to point B, I'm in traveling mode and see nothing unless my surface ships on my team have spotted it.
Right.
Now,
I'm not adding to the spotting, in other words. Yeah.
Correct. Now, here's the other funny thing, though. Do I spot a lot? Initially, yes. But once you open up your guns, I'm not the thing spotting you 9 times out of 10.
Right.
So, do I get spotting damage? Yeah. I might be the closest thing to you that's getting the spotting damage, but if I wasn't the closest thing to you and you're shooting your guns, you're probably spotted by a surface ship anyway.
Right.
So that's another thing that people forget.
Well, and now or go ahead if you got another thought there.
Everybody says, I'm spotted, CV's in game, therefore CV fault.
Yeah. I'm spotted in game. I can't believe everybody can see me. You know what I mean? As you're running your mains or whatever. And the other thing that's going to be interesting about this, and this isn't really something we have to necessarily address or try to comment on today, but like the that incidental spotting, if that all goes away. Okay.
Hang on just a sec. Straub's, no, it's not the next patch. They've only announced what they're looking at changing. We have zero details yet. When they announce some of the details they're working on, it will be in test realm.
Yeah, so this is going to be in testing, right?
They know they need to fix it. It's just not fixed yet. Everything else I'm talking about will still apply though once those planes are in play against your ship.
Yep. So let me just put my tinfoil hat on real quick.
Uh-oh.
If I were to enter the speculation zone, Wargaming told us about this. They've scheduled a big bunch of testing and stuff that's going to happen during the next couple of patches. They've been talking about it. I think they're fairly confident with this idea, but we don't know what the final form, what the real thing is going to be. I think this concept is probably going to make it. I don't know exactly how it's going to make it, what it's going to look like, what the rules are going to be, but I think that this concept is probably pretty serious. But you never know. They could about face. We could lose this idea, and they could come up with something new for us in the future. But they're talking about it pretty seriously, so I'm suspicious that this is going to be pretty similar to what the final version is going to look like. Tinfoil hat removed.
And again, for the meantime, paying attention to what your AA detection range is and looking at that mini-map and seeing if there's a way you could skirt around it it takes me a little bit out of one position, but it keeps me from getting spotted until I feel like getting spotted. So there have been times I've had to go, long road around on, well, not really long, but wide enough that I don't get seen. And especially the DD or sometimes a cruiser battleship, I'm like, I'm gonna get spotted, the match just started, we're good.
Yeah, that's how that game works, right? If you're a battleship guy or whatever,
it's like, I'm spotted, no kidding, you're a BB.
Leviathan's got a comment in here about, or sorry, if you got another thought, and then I'll jump to Leviathan's comment.
It might be Leviathan. But realistically speaking, World of Warships is actually a pretty technically complex game with all the different mechanics and physics they have. And again, I'm not fanboying for Ouija, but just looking at it from a sheer development standpoint, they've got over 500 ships in this game. They do a pretty good job balancing for the most part. Is there things that are broken? Yeah.
There's a spectrum of balance, right? Is everything balanced? No. Are some things super unbalanced? Yes.
Does the game work pretty good? Yeah, it works pretty good, right?
Yeah.
Talking about
so
the
they don't do a bad job with it. I mean, somebody like Blizzard that only has to balance 32 heroes in Overwatch. I mean, come on.
Yeah. It's definitely a different challenge for sure. And to Leviathan's comment there about it being complicated, I'm hopeful that it's like the rules of a board game, that it reads complicated, but it plays not complicated. And I think that's part of what they're going to be testing. I think that's part of.
I think it's going to be more complicated. I don't think it's going to be complicated for Surface players at all. I think the most complicated thing for Surface players is the same complication they have new. Pay attention to the minimap. Look where those planes are. Your standard AA will do nothing unless they come down to attack. Your DFAA that will hit them. But standard AA will not, is what they have stated that they're looking at doing so far. Now, this is all subject to change, so
all subject to change. And the other piece of that, too, is the other thing that surface ships are going to experience. And this is the piece I was trying to get to earlier, but we kind of took a little detour. And that's okay, of course. Detours are what this show's about. But is that surface ship players are going to have less spotting. You think battleship players complain and hit the F7 button right now? I need intelligence data. Like, they're going to have less spotting. All that spotting is going to go away. So all those long bomb, Hail Mary, awesome citadels you used to get are going to be less common. How much less common? I don't know. Destroyers are still spotting. Cruisers are still radaring, right?
Yep.
CVs are still attacking things. And when they do, they're still spotting too, right? So some of that stuff's still going to happen. But we are going to see, you're going to have less information about the battlefield around you or the ocean around you. And that's okay. Yeah, Mal says we got DDs, we got subs. That's right. DDs are adding to spotting as well from something we didn't have, a year ago or whatever.
Scott will be grumpy.
Scott and a lot of other people will be grumpy too. I'll be grumpy when I'm in a battleship as well. So we're gonna have less overall spotting. But I think the submarine thing, the destroyer thing, is gonna go back to kind of an older world a little bit, which I don't know. I'm hopeful right now. Speculation zone is in full effect here as we're chatting, of course. But okay. Going forward, we have this little section in our outline called "What can wargaming do about CVs to make this better?" We've had a lot of crazy suggestions. We've had a lot of good suggestions. We talked about manual AA already, right? And we both think that's kind of a bad idea.
I mentioned it. I didn't actually talk about it.
Yeah, I wanted to throw the microphone your way and be like, let's talk about manual AA. What do you, from your perspective, what do you think about that?
Manual AA, here's the problem with manual AA. People can't pay attention to the minimap now. So you're telling me that that I've got to, first of all, from a coding perspective, I've got to turn around and manually, I've got to add a whole nother level of complication to be able to take all of my AA and move it up and be able to get the arcs necessary to hit the planes, track the planes, et cetera, et cetera. It's a pain in the butt to get that to switch the mounts, and it's a whole level of coding. Not only that, but so you're telling me that if I'm creating a cross drop on you and you're dealing with 2 to 3 other ships plus me as a CV, that you want to take and manually control to hit my planes versus try and deal with the other ships?
Yeah.
That makes no sense.
Everybody loves ship damage. Nobody cares about airplane damage, right? Everybody is like, I did 100,000 damage. And then if I go, how much plane damage did you do? Nobody knows. Nobody has any idea.
They already can't sector their AA.
Right. Thanks for the follow, Opie.
I mean, that's big. You're not wrong. I mean, these are the same people who don't understand that priority sector is a thing. In a lot of cases, well, that's a broad generalization, but
I would also like to say this.
You understand priority sector, and that's a button for free damage.
I would also like to say this. If there was a game that I could play where I got to control AA guns, I think that's amazing. I don't know if I think that game is World of Warships. I think it's not World of Warships. However, if there was a game where like Cypher was driving the ship, I had somebody running turret 1, somebody else running turret 2, somebody running the AA guns, somebody running turret 3, somebody running the torpedoes, and we had like a 6-man team on like a frigate or a destroyer or something, that would be amazing. And I would play the shit out of that game. Like, I love that game.
So,
I just don't think it's World
Clyde,
of Warships.
That game is called Star Citizen.
No. I can't let Star Citizen take my life over. There's also a game called Guns of Icarus, which is an older
multiplayer game where you fly around in airships and do that game's been made a few times, and there's some awesome ideas there. I don't know that I think manual AA is a good idea. The next one, you've got a section in here that says, and this is an outline you provided me, which I appreciate. Do players even know they're being targeted by a CV? We've been talking about the Minimap today. How can wargaming help players understand that they are being threatened by an aircraft carrier effectively?
If it were me and I was able to wave a magic wand, I wouldn't even necessarily. I would change the spotting a little bit. Okay, I would probably make it more like the radar style spotting, where it was, you can see an outline on the map, so you know they're there, or actually not radar, but what is it? Cyclone spotting. So unless they are in your range, you can see an outline on the map, but you don't know exactly where they're at to truly aim at them, right?
Yeah.
That would be the way I would do airplane spotting if it were me. So the CVs can still see whatever they want to see, but the rest of the team's like, there's a thing over there, but where is it? Or something to that effect, and maybe shorten the range of it. That would be how I would change that. But the rest of the magic wand I would do, I would force the CV to choose a target for the best Sigma. So in other words, you know how if you blind fire at something, your Sigma's worse with your main battery, but if you target it, it's supposed to tighten up your Sigma, right? I would do the same thing with CVs, but I would also make it so you had to have them targeted for an appropriate length of time to basically cone in that Sigma. So they can't just turbo click and so, you actually need to target them.
So you're thinking about like a lock-on mechanic on the CV's side. That doesn't necessarily help the player understand that they've been targeted, although they could get a little alert or an icon or something.
It's funny you should mention that, because I would do that exact same thing, especially for people who use the priority target commander skill. Add a plane icon with a number on it.
Yeah.
So
we have that concept in game already,
right? It's so basically you just add a plane icon with the number saying, "Oh, the CV's targeting you," or or Louisiana's targeting you.
Targeting you.
You are being targeted by planes.
Or Louisiana, yeah, that's true. We've got hybrids in the game now.
And when it targets you, the squadron becomes more visible on the minimap. It's like, oh, hey, that thing, then you would add a bonus to the priority target skill for priority sector damage, maybe a couple percentage, something along those lines. So those were some of the things that I think wargaming could do in the current meta to make things better. We'll see what pans out with how they change the spotting, but that would be, if I were to wave a magic wand, I think this would fix a lot, because at that point, if you don't realize you're getting hit by the CV, slap yourself and go get a cup of coffee to wake up.
Yeah, it's time, right? It's time. Take a break from the keyboard, walk away.
GTFO, there's the outside, go enjoy the sun for a
That's
few.
right. Go touch some grass. What do the kids say? Touch grass. Yeah.
Right. And then I think they need better tutorials, although you can go to my YouTube for that.
There you go. Ooh, plug. Boy, if that doesn't work, I don't know what will. So I agree. I think some of that stuff, that just awareness especially for newer players, but honestly, all of us could use this, right?
I think so.
All of us could use a little bit of a clue.
I've been caught unaware by CVs because my head's too busy on a swivel.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of keyed into looking for CV stuff.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right.
I want to hit you with another question. Are you ready for a new one?
Yeah.
All right.
Go for it. What you got?
We talked about why we don't allow CVs in clan battles. We don't allow CVs in King of the Sea. We don't allow CVs in ranked most of the time, although they're in there right now. Why aren't CVs in competitive, and what could we do to make it better? Is it just the spotting, or is it more than that, do you think? We talk about battle influence, right? That's been a big topic throughout today's stream. And
I'm an opinionated
Let's talk about that.
Okay, I am an opinionated cur, and I freely admit this, and here's my thing.
You're saying you've got some ideas.
Yeah, I have thoughts on the matter. I don't necessarily have ideas, but I have thoughts.
Okay, well, we'll take those. We'll start there.
And this is not a popular opinion, and I'm gonna, and I here it is. when it comes to when they were in clan battles, the last time CVs were in clan battles, was tier 6.
Yep.
And when you're looking at the actual effectiveness, once you got above, what was it, Storm? Above Storm, CV effectiveness was starting to drop dramatically. The winning teams were not running CVs. So why that was, honestly, that part I don't know. But when they were looking at the win rate for people that were running battleships versus CVs, the battleships were more often than not winning above Storm. Below Storm, not so much.
Yeah, we played that season. My clan was in bronze, silver, and gold. So Gale or Squall, Gale, and Storm. Right. We played in the CV area basically the whole time because we tend to get to Storm. Right. And it was lots of CVs for us.
And it was hard.
It was a tough way to live.
But realistically speaking, the biggest advantage CVs have is spotting. Now, that said, when it comes to things like clan battles,
that was also the season of the smoke too, which made that hard for CVs. I think.
Oh yeah, because everybody was running. What was it? Huang Wei and Perth.
Huang He, Perth. I guess Leander could have been in there, right? But a lot of these smoky destroyers. So the poor battleship was the only guy who was visible the whole time, and he would just get eviscerated by everybody else. Oh, that was a tough season.
It was a tough season. Now, again, once they got above Storm, that people didn't have a problem with the CV. It was like, okay, this is kind of, you're spotting us, but you can't hit us. Or there was things that they were doing about it. Now, exactly what they were doing, I don't know. But the data that Wargaming collected on win rate for CV versus non-CV was clearly pointing at the lower ranks problem with CV, upper ranks no problem with CV.
There's a beautiful data report. I'll jump right back to you, but there's a beautiful report Wargaming put together after that season, which you can find on the dev blog. That showed a lot of amazing metrics. It was so cool that they shared that with us. So big ups to Wargaming for sharing that with us. But go ahead, as you were saying.
And that's actually where I think I saw it. And I might be misremembering the league breakdown, right? But feel free to look that up because, it was one of the older ones. Now, here's my thing on COTS. Things like COTS, if you've ever noticed, they all have a tendency of playing the exact same build. They have a tendency of playing almost always the same ships because those ships are the most powerful in this current meta. But it's basically, if you take World of Warships and put it in a small sandbox, and that's what they're playing. Everybody's running double conceal, which double conceal in a random game, especially with CVs, is kind of dumb because you're going to get spotted, and then you have limited toolkit.
I'm only going to get spotted 55% of the time. That's when there's CVs around. But I know what you mean. I run a lot of double conceal, but I know what you mean for tournament play.
Which double conceal can have its time and place, and certain ships are going to be great with double conceal. And I'll get to that question here in a minute. So more audio alerts would also be cool. That's another thing you could do. But my opinion on COTS is they are very, very skilled players in a certain parameter.
Well, they've optimized that game to a T. Like, no one in the world is better than the best teams at COTS at doing that thing. Like, that's amazing. And they've really dialed it in.
But the second you get ships that break that thing, they don't like it, and they typically don't allow those ships. So I don't know.
Hang on, I'm going to read between the lines here and just say the unstated thing. You're saying, I don't know why they don't put them in competitive modes. They should, is what you're telling me, because that would shake up the meta.
I'm not saying they should.
Okay, don't let me put words in your mouth.
Because it's their tournament. They're going to play it the way they want to play.
For real. Yeah, for real.
Okay.
Yeah.
And whatever, far be it for me to tell them how to play their game and have fun in something that's supposed to be entertainment.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be fair, they've defined parameters for a game and they love the game. And when I say they, I'm talking about the organizers of COTS, who are now Wargaming employees, and of course the players of COTS as well. They have zoomed in, they've defined a game that they love to play, and it's the biggest tournament we have in the game, and everybody's a big. So there's something right about what they're doing. I want to throw them a bone here as we're talking through this, because that's totally legitimately a great way to play World of Warships.
And I agree with that. Me personally, they're having fun. More power to them. I find COTS to be dull. I never watch it. Why? Because they're all camping behind islands, creating cross shots.
It's a very carefully played, very, very minutia-based mode because it's so optimized, isn't it? It's very, very optimized.
There's things that could break that monotony.
Yeah.
They don't allow in the game.
Yeah.
Which that's the way they want to play. Hey, cool. And they're very good shots. They're very good at positioning. They're very good at understanding a lot of the mechanics.
Do you think some of the spotting changes that we've been talking about might
choreographed wows?
It's very choreographed. No, that's good. Do you think some of those spotting changes that we've been talking about might make the ships more tenable in that mode, though? Let's talk clan battles, not so much COTS, but like in clan battles or something.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, with the changes that they're
actually,
implementing,
hang on. Do you play clan battles? I don't know.
I have played some clan battles. I'm not a huge fan of them, just because
I mean, you're a CD
I don't
main.
feel like I can contribute
your class is
as
not
much
there, and that is a bummer for players like you. And I think that's actually one of the things that Scott and I talk about a lot. That's one thing we're really bummed about, is that we have a ship in the game that's supposed to be a first-class citizen, that's supposed to be able to play all of World of Warships, or at least we believe that all classes should be able to play everything, and these guys are like kept out of the best competitive version of the game that is for normal players, right? And that's a bummer.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I was kind of curious. I was like, do you do clan battles? I don't know. Did you? You obviously did the tier 6 season, I think.
The tier 6 I did more. Although my work hours really kind of prevented me from doing too much.
Yeah.
That and it's what I don't do clan battles when I'm streaming. So because I would rather be able to interact with my chat and answer questions, because I do CV counterplay. I can't do that while I'm playing clan battles.
Right.
So that really limits my time on it. But because they don't have CVs in clan battles, I'm kind of like,
yeah, it's not for you, and so you just don't play. So and that's the piece that like I say drives me crazy, is we've got a community of players, and it's a reasonable sized chunk now. 55% of your games have at least one CV in it. And the people who play those either have to swap ships, which a lot of people are fine doing, or they're just, if that's their main, if they're a main for CVs, they don't get to play clans. And that sucks, because those guys are missing out on what I think is one of the best ways to play World of Warships. So I want to throw that out there, and the world needs to, I guess,
let me answer Mal's question real quick.
Take it away.
So will the CV changes that are coming be applied to hybrids and Dutch cruiser planes? Dutch cruiser planes cannot spot as it is.
That's right.
So that one's that's a non-issue. The hybrids, probably
they haven't
stated so, but I would imagine that they would change that.
I asked this question, and I don't believe there's an answer to it yet. And that's not me saying there's an answer, but it's behind NDA. I don't believe there's a publicly available answer, and they didn't give me one. So I think the answer is probably, if tinfoil hat speculation zone, probably yes, but there's no, I don't believe there's information on it yet. If you guys know of a place where they posted a dev blog article, or there's a clip from a stream where some developer or community manager said something, let us know. But I think right now the answer is it is unclear, but it would be logical that they would share those rules with hybrids as well.
Yeah, that's my opinion, but that's based off of speculation. So
yeah, very speculative, and I don't want anybody to think that we know anything special, because we don't.
Yeah. I don't know nothing. I make this crap up as I go.
Yeah, this was unscripted today. We had a couple of ideas, but that was about it. Cypher, I think that's everything. Is there anything else that you want to talk about with the folks while we're here? I actually didn't think we'd be able to be done this early. This is not bad. It's still been like 2 hours, so we're killing it. But
the one thing I can that I want to kind of leave everybody with is, nobody likes getting clapped. There are ways around everything. There are counters to everything, and sometimes the counter to you is the thing that is clapping you, and there's sometimes not much you can do about that. However, That doesn't mean you have no options.
Oh, I thought you said Kaba,
on how to
as
mitigate.
in Khabarovsk. However, Kaba.
Comma,
I was like,
comma,
what?
comma.
No, I got you. Comma. Yep. Continue. However, comma.
Camouflage is a hospital ship. Wow.
Boy, that seems like that's a.
So that said, if you are struggling with things, if there's something else I can do to help you, please stop in. Ask me questions in chat. Thursdays and Fridays are my WoW streams. You can always ask me questions in Discord. I'll be more than happy to answer there. Anything I can do to help you guys, that's literally what I do. Is I will spend time. I have a redeem where I will watch a replay and people are like, okay, what could I have done better for either a CV or surface ship dealing with a CV, and I'll look at it and I'll pause it at key points, and I'm only looking at the CV interaction. I'm not looking at anything else.
You got a very focused thing that you're trying to help with.
Because that's what I'm good at. So I want to help there where I can. I'm more than happy to try and assist, but you guys have options. And I hope that this has helped some of you, that you've learned maybe a thing or two. That's really, at the end of the day, what I try to do. And I know Clyde's really good at kind of breaking down and looking at things from a logical perspective. That's one of the reasons why I want to partner with Clyde. And guys, I'm assuming most of you are here that are already following Clyde. If you're not, please do. He's a wonderful streamer, and I picked him for a reason to be able to do this. So. And I really just appreciate the 100 of you that have been sitting in here listening to us babble about a very contentious topic. And again, I hope it's helped.
Yeah, definitely. It's certainly been great to have you. I think chat, first of all, I want to thank you guys too. You guys were really conversational. I'm sure there's somebody in here who's been shouting at their screen as we said stuff that you may not have agreed with or maybe didn't like right away. It's okay to disagree with the stuff we talked about today. We are not the overlords of anything. We're not experts on anything, but we wanted to kind of host this conversation a little bit. I don't think we timed anybody out, but if we did, I hope that you're still here and that it wasn't anything that ruined your day. But definitely really appreciate you guys coming to be a part of this. I was really impressed with how chat was participating as well. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Cypher.
I just said hi, Big GD's here.
Big GD's here. Yep.
It was one Big GD, Clefender, Attempted Dodge are all in chat right now. I don't think Trust Anyone is, but these were the guys who contributed the data for me, and Clyde as well on the battle data. So it made it a lot easier for us to actually look at things and get a bit clear picture.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then CB again, thank you, Big Data.
And then the other thing I want to plug one more time is we got the YouTube channel here. I just dropped the link in here to Angelic Cypher's brand new YouTube channel. Go give him a follow or a subscription over there. Remember, subs on YouTube are free. Subs on Twitch cost money. It's like a follow. You can go over there and do that. He's going to be posting some really great CV information. And again, I watched a couple of the videos, really impressed with what he's got so far. And everybody's first videos are the worst ones they make. So they're only going to get better from here. So Cypher, looking forward to seeing where you're going to go with that. I think it's going to be a really great resource for the community. And I think if you guys enjoyed spending time with Cypher today, scroll up a little bit. We've got that shout out for Angelic Cypher. Give him a follow on Twitch. As he said, he's invited you to come ask questions. He's a very approachable person, easy to talk to and so this was an easy conversation for us to have today. So Cypher, thanks for spending some of your Saturday over here with us.
Thank you.
And I think that's basically it. Final thoughts from, I kind of gave you a final thoughts already, but goodbye, everybody. Say goodbye, Cypher.
See y'all later.